C.J. Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Hey everybody, here we are, the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's a Monday. I know people are feeling a little down today because of, it's not even, and we've got Earl in today, by the way. We've got Jason in today. Earl is in for G. Bush, who is not feeling well. It seems like once a month G. Bush has got, he's got all these messed up injuries from football. So once a month he can't move, basically. I don't know.
You're right. You're right.
Right? It's like once a month he can't move, and so he can't drive, he can't come into work. Hopefully he'll feel better tomorrow, because it was funny, because I'm not going to divulge the conversation, but I got a call from G. Bush at 11 o'clock last night. He never calls. I'm not a big caller either, but like doesn't call at all. And he just called me out of the blue at 11 o'clock last night, and I'm like, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And we talked for a little bit. But anyway, he was doing all right last night, but obviously this morning he woke up, he was messed up. But here's the thing, guys, and we'll start with Jason. And for me, it's not necessarily that they lost to Seattle, because I think we all expected that. It's just how they lost. That's the more painful thing.
Sure. Obviously, it hurts because you're in it at the end. You have a chance to win it at the end, and you think you're going to win it. And then I will get into the 3rd and 3. I know everyone wants to go ballistic over that. I'm not going to go as ballistic. I don't know if anyone here. You might be looking for G. Bush, because G would go crazy on the 3rd and 3. But I don't know if anyone here is going to.
I feel like Jay would have also. Right?
Jay would have for sure. Jay would have lost his mind. Jay and G would lose their mind over that play call. I'll tell you why as we get into it. I'm not as hot and bothered by it, but it's disappointing for sure. But nobody thought they were going to win that game, and the fact that they were as competitive as they were, we talked about it. You're 4 and 3. Winning the Colts game, beating the 49ers allowed you to not necessarily have to have that one. Now you come home against the Cardinals team you should beat. So it stinks, but not every loss is the end of the world. I'm sorry. Like, you don't have to fire the coach every time you lose the game.
Right. It is a little crazy. Earl has gone from the Stefanski hater to the Stefanski apologist, apparently.
He did. 2 weeks ago, I ain't like Stefanski.
People
yesterday.
blow with the wind there, Earl.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
The Browns played hard. They played a good game. They came in there. I thought they had a sound game plan. They ran the ball effectively. They put themselves in position to come away with a win. Kevin Stefanski, I thought, had his 3rd-string quarterback ready to play.
Yep.
I think it came down to a series of events in the last 2.5 minutes of the game that ultimately cost the Browns the win. And those things happen in the NFL. Those things happen across the league. So, I'm not going to really kill them for that. I do have an issue with the situational play calling in its totality. But I'm not going to kill him overall for a 3rd and 3. It is what it is.
A lot to get to today. Obviously, we got a 3-man panel all this week. Jay's on vacation. And like I said, G. Bush not feeling well. We'll talk about the quarterback situation with the trade deadline. What is it, 4 p.m. tomorrow?
4 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the trade I said tomorrow, and then you said Tuesday, as if that was...
You're both correct.
Tomato. Yeah. Want to say?
29 hours away from the trade deadline. We'll get into that. But obviously, all the quarterback situation. We will talk about the defense. We'll talk about it all. Everything that happened. The whole show's about what happened in yesterday's game and what the Browns may do in the next 29 hours. But before I give my initial thoughts on the game, let's go to Mikey McNuggets, who you've heard from already. Here we go, Mike.
What's up, guys? If you guys do need to hear G. Bush, you can go back and check it out on yesterday's post-game show. He was definitely, as Jason said, hot and bothered by the 3rd down play call. So if you don't get the anger you need from these 3 guys, go watch our post-game show yesterday, and you will hear the anger from G. Bush. Before we get into the rest of yesterday's game against Seattle, you can score early this season with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if you hit a winning moneyline bet of any magnitude. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use, and they have a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, an official partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and you might be the next Marcus Wood. who turned a $5 bet into a $337 profit yesterday with a five-part anytime touchdown score or parlay. He had A.J. Brown, Jordan Addison, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, and Mark Andrews. They all scored, so he turned $5 into $377.17. You can become the next Marcus Wood and get a little richer if you're using FanDuel.com.
I had a 4-leg parlay, anytime touchdown parlay that missed by 1 leg. And then I had my parlay for the Bengals and 49ers game that missed by 1 leg. Brandon Ayuk didn't score. Cost me about $400, and Cooper Kupp didn't score. Cost me about another $400.
Cooper Kupp didn't do anything. The Rams were terrible. But so that's actually a good parlay because it paid a lot on $5, and all 5 of those guys, none of them were long shots to score touchdowns, but you still got to hit all 5. But it's a pretty good payoff considering there were no long shots in that mix. Also, at FanDuel, the Browns are a 7.5-point favorite against Arizona for this week. Kyler Murray is not starting. They already announced that Josh Dobbs is going to start. Kyler Murray may start next week, but they're at least for another week.
We'll settle once and for all if the Browns should have traded Josh Dobbs. It's Josh Dobbs against P.J. Walker.
Exactly.
I told Mike yesterday at the end of the post-game show, I said, man, don't let Josh Dobbs come in here and ball out. You think
I'm calling off
my goodness.
And Arizona's been bad. I mean, they're they have the worst record than Carolina. Carolina got their first win. But my initial thoughts, and then we'll get specifically to the play call, guys. The Browns played a hell of a game overall, right? Like, they went to Seattle. It's as tough a place to play as there is in the league. They were in the, down when they were down 14-0 early. We probably all thought they were getting boat raced in this game. I know I did. Did you think that?
I did too.
Jason,
it was looking bleak.
It was looking bleak. And then for the most part, the defense played well the rest of the way, and the offense did just enough. But this is the NFL. This is where we're at. And this year, it feels like it's more balanced than ever. You look at the AFC. There's only one team with less than 3 wins in the entire AFC, and that's New England. That's it. 15 of the 16 teams in the AFC are between 3 and 6 wins. It's going to come. It's going to be tough, and this is the best division in football. You look at that. Now, we'll get into all of that, and we'll get into the big picture of the division because obviously the division is really tough with the Bengals looking back to normal, the Ravens winning and looking great, Steelers lost, they played terribly, and the Browns lose. Guys, let's start with the 3rd and 1 play, or 3rd and 3 play at the end of the game. Because I would argue that going into that play, you could have argued that Kevin Stefanski had called nearly a perfect game in that game. I thought he did a tremendous job for most of the day. When that play first happened, I texted our group chat and I said, I don't like it. I don't like throwing the ball there. As I've had time to settle now, 18 hours or whatever later, I don't dislike it as much as I did at the time. Now, if I had my druthers, I still would have ran the ball there. The analytics point to it being close. I mean, you sent new stuff, and I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
What did the new analytics say?
Well, it wasn't analytics. First of all, before I do that, here's the thing that I think, this is why I think it's low-hanging fruit to go after that play.
Yeah.
They had a 3rd and 3 plays earlier and threw it, and nobody said a word. Like, nobody's going crazy over that. It was 3rd and 3.
The difference to me there is that first 3rd and 3, there's 4 minutes to go in the game.
3:40.
Right. So there's way more time. So you need to get a first down, and you have, in theory, a better chance to get a first down throwing the ball. Whereas at this juncture in the game, it's more risky. First of all, you're further down the field, so you can bury them if you punt.
They're only 10 yards farther. 7 yards farther.
But 10 yards and 2 minutes.
But the clock's going to stop at the 2 minute.
That's true.
And that's why, I mean, Daryl Johnson said on the broadcast, I didn't go to Seattle. It's one of the few games I'll miss. I didn't want to fly that far.
Yeah.
So he said on the broadcast, the whole playbook is open here.
That's right.
Because you're going to the 2 minute warning. Now, if you really hate the play call, I'm going to give you data to support it. I went back since the start of 2020 and looked at run versus pass, converting 3rd and 3, specifically 3rd and 3. And I could put in all kinds of ramifications about the score and where you're positioned on the field, but I try to keep it simple. 3rd and 3 in the NFL since 2020 when Kevin got here, if you run it, you're converting 58% of the time. Passing is 49% of the time. But the Browns, since Kevin got here, are converting 57% of the time when they're throwing it on 3rd and exactly 3.
Yeah.
So
what are they converting it and running the ball?
I have it. Give me a second and I'll look.
Yeah.
I think they're really close. They're really
Yeah.
close to the league average.
Yes.
But all of those runs were with Nick Chubb. The vast majority of those, you would think, on 3rd and 3.
Right, but the passes weren't with as bad. Even though
passes
the Browns
weren't
haven't had good quarterback play, P.J. Walker's the worst.
Two things can be true.
Yeah.
They didn't have good quarterback play. They didn't have it this bad. PJ's terrible. But I look at it as like, for whatever reason, he was locked in on Amari. He was going to Amari from the snap.
Right, there were guys wide open.
So he didn't give the play a chance to develop. I don't know if he could have seen him even if he did, because Jerome Ford was wide open in the middle of the field, but Petonio was blocking his view. So I don't even know. He would have had to hold the ball and wait for it to develop, and he didn't do that. From the jump, he was going to Amari. The odds of it hitting a guy's helmet are 1 in a million. It may have been picked even if it didn't hit his helmet because Amari was covered. Yeah. The other guys weren't. So I just think if you're going to complain about that one play call, I don't understand why people aren't more hostile about the 3rd and 3 when they threw it 3 plays earlier. It was 3 plays earlier. And they threw it then on 3rd and 3. Nobody said a word.
A lot of the reaction, obviously, is prisoner of the
because
moment because
picked.
it didn't work.
Sure.
Earl, your take on the 3rd and 3 throwing the ball.
I mean, you can easily look and say, well, we should have, could have, would have run it, but I had no issue with it because up until that point, I thought Kevin Stefanski had called a great game. So why go over the hill and try to kill him because he called one play that's quote unquote questionable? For the most part, P.J. Walker did a pretty damn good job moving the football throughout the game. I thought the run game was solid. I thought the pass game was, decent, for lack of a better word, considering the situation that we were in. Of course, he had those turnovers, but no, I can't sit up here and point to that one thing and say that's why the Cleveland Browns lost this game. Because the truth of the matter is, he called that play, the ball was picked off, but you know what? The defense still stepped out on that field. And the defense still allowed that offense to drive all the way down the field and get the game-winning touchdown.
That's right.
And so it's so easy to just, when you're frustrated, when you lose a game that everybody think we should have won, it's so easy to say, okay, well, this is the reason, that's the reason, that's the reason. And to me, like I said to open the show, it was a series of events within the last 2.5 minutes of the game. I felt like that would cost the Browns to win. It wasn't just a 3rd and 3 play call.
Well, it's been this way 3 weeks in a row, right? The Browns got the breaks against San Francisco. They got the breaks against Indianapolis. I thought all the penalties went their way again yesterday.
I did too.
They did.
But in the end, the tip ball, the interception, they can't stop them. What are you going to do?
Real quick, to answer your question, on running, the Browns are right around the league average. So they're right at 59%. League average is 58%, so they're real close.
So the Browns are even on 3rd and 3.
Even on 3rd and 3 when running, they're way above on 3rd and 3 when throwing. So
I still think the smart play there was to run.
Well, here's the thing.
But it's not egregious enough that I'm going to get worked up about it.
And it's funny, if they don't get it, and I don't know who you trust in that spot. I know everyone's
Right.
going to scream Kareem Hunt because everyone thinks Kareem's great, and I get it, whatever.
I don't.
I don't either.
I don't think he's as bad as you are making about. But
I've just said he's
You said
got 3 wheels.
Hey, somebody tweeted at me yesterday, say 3 wheels.
Yeah.
I tweeted something about Kareem Hunt. I was like, okay, that's
he's averaging 3 yards per carry.
He's the league average, I think, is like 4.2 yards a carry. He's below the league average.
Well below.
So, he's league. That's
for just yesterday.
With 3 wheels, you can still go real far on a tricycle. I'm just saying, people, if Kareem Hunt
that's what's impressive, the 4 touchdowns.
Well, yeah. Most of them been around the goal line, but one he had the long run that I remember. There was the great play call, and they pitched it out to him. Yeah. And others have been around the goal line, but whatever. If Kareem Hunt was from Poughkeepsie and went to Ball State, nobody give a shit about him. But it's because he's from here. That's the whole thing. Fine, whatever. But if they didn't get it, I bet you they go for it. I bet you he goes for it on 4th down. If it's 4th and 1, if they run it and don't get it, and then people would really lose their minds. But Kevin is playing to win the game. Every time. He wants to win the game.
And I love that. And sometimes it's going to backfire when you do that, and that's why I do like Kevin Stefanski.
Because you put the game in the hands of the defense against San Francisco, and what did the Niners do? They ran right down the field on you and got in position to kick a field goal. Now, against the Colts, they did get a stop late. They gave up 38 points, but they did force a stop late to get the ball back and allow the Browns to go down the field. And the Seahawks just cut right through them after the turnover.
Yeah. Well,
so who's to say that they don't punt it and the same thing happens?
That's right. Because, by the way, so the Seahawks started that drive. Let's save the defense for a little bit because I want to get to the quarterback stuff.
Can I chime in one thing real
go
quick
ahead.
on what Jason just alluded to with the defense and the coaching? I'm never going to criticize a coach for being aggressive and trying to get a 1st down to end the game.
Yeah.
I think there's an extreme that goes too far. But in that situation, if Kevin Stefanski felt throwing the ball to P.J. Walker gave them the best chance to get a 1st down, and a 1st down ends the game. A 1st down in that situation, game over. It didn't work out.
Listen, in the end,
but I'm not going to criticize him for that mindset.
If you feel I disagree with the play call, and I almost never, as you know, talk about play calling. I think it's way overblown.
I wish you would have ran it too.
I would have run it because I don't trust P.J. Walker in a big spot. I think he's shown you that through 3 weeks. We'll get to that, and we'll get to that in a second. But again, it's a toss-up call.
Do you trust Strong to get you 3 yards or Kareem to get you 3 yards?
I would have trusted them to get 3 yards more than him in the air.
That's
not
fair.
By a lot.
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I think you're picking between the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like you don't have Nick Chubb, you don't have Deshaun Watson.
I actually like what I saw from Pierre Strong. We'll get to that too. Guys, the biggest story is the quarterback situation here. All right? We just talked about it. The AFC's loaded. The Browns are 4-3. Their defense, we'll get to the how good they really are. I think the nonsense about all-time great defense is out the window. The running game is good enough, I think. We'll see if they do it. But the P.J. Walker is awful. Think about this. This is how bad P.J. Walker is. That Earl just said, and I said this on my podcast yesterday, well, he played a pretty good game. We thought of yesterday's performance by P.J. Walker as a pretty good game. Look at those statistics. They're awful. Awful. We thought it was a pretty good game because he made like 5 or 6 nice throws.
There's also a fumble in there, which is not shown on the graph.
3 turnovers. 3 turnovers.
Awful. He is awful, awful.
I just thought of this, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. It may not be the terrible thing that they lost because they shouldn't continue to be rewarded for running this terrible quarterback play out and winning these games. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like against San Francisco, played terrible, won the game. Against Indianapolis, played terrible, won the game. At some point, you need to be held accountable for the decisions that you make and the quarterbacks that you run out
Basically, like if the Browns would have won that game, that would have been 3 in a row, and Andrew Berry would have had the opportunity to sit back and be like, see?
Well, I
ain't got to go get no quarterback.
I think they're going to do that anyway.
They are, and that's the point I was trying to make last night on the post-game show. Like, the quarterback play is horrible. P.J. Walker is not a good quarterback. He's a third-string quarterback, so we shouldn't even have an expectation of him to be a good quarterback. The frustration comes from we've been told this is what you got, now go deal with it. And I think the people who are screaming this morning, go fire Kevin Stefanski, you got to give Kevin Stefanski some credit. You know, P.J. Walker threw for 248 yards, right? Your head coach had all week to get your third-string quarterback ready. And to me, with that being a decent game, and we know it's a bad game, you got to give some kudos because P.J. Walker is probably not capable of throwing for 240 yards, every single week.
That's about as well as he can play.
That's about as well as he can play.
That's as well as he can play.
And that was the most passing yards that the Seahawks defense has surrendered since week 3 of the season. You know what I mean?
Which is what I've been saying since the man got here. He's had the best. Baker had his best year under him. Jacoby Brissett had his best year under him. He gets the best out of whatever you give him. He's going to wring out the very best, except for Deshaun. It hasn't worked out yet. But with all these other guys who have been just average middle-tier quarterbacks, Kevin gets the best out of them.
The Browns have had the worst quarterback play in the NFL this year. The worst. It's not close. And yet they're 4-3.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I got a stat to prove exactly what you just said, but before I do that, I need to remind the people out there that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and this stat is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, brand new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150. Winner, if your team wins a simple money line bet, they could be a -900 favorite. That's $150 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. They have player props, spreads, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to get in all the action. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and an official partner of the NFL. So you talked
where
about
are the Browns, by the way, in turnover margin?
We'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
But let me tell you the stat about the quarterbacks real quick.
Sorry.
This is some deep analytics going to make it super simple for you.
Yeah.
EPA, expected points above average, which is the most basic bottom line, and CPOE, completion percentage above expected. Two pretty basic analytics. When you combine it together, you get a composite score, and this is pretty telling. There are 35 quarterbacks in the NFL that qualify with enough passes thrown. Steve, you can take this graphic full. Of the 35 quarterbacks, take a look at this. Mac Jones is 31st with a combined composite score of 0.23. Josh Dobbs, who we'll see this weekend.
Yeah, he stinks too.
32nd in the NFL, 0.18.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett has not been good this year, 0.009. Zach Wilson, also terrible, with a 0.04. And look at that. There's number 35, dead last, P.J. Walker with a minus. The only quarterback with a minus composite CPOE plus EPA in the league of a 0.42 on the negative side.
Where is Deshaun Watson?
Does not actually qualify.
Oh, where would he be? Do you know?
I can look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, it just says it all. I mean, and
it doesn't get worse than that.
The
It's
Browns,
not even close between him and Zach Wilson.
The Browns have turned the ball over at an alarming rate.
7 turnovers in the fourth quarter.
7. They're 4-3, averaging a turnover per game in the fourth quarter.
7 turnovers in the fourth quarter. That leads the league. I was trying to run something real quick before the show, and I couldn't get it to work. But according to our data, 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter, tied with, I think, the Bears for the most in the NFL for fourth quarter turnovers.
There you go. Their turnover differential is -7. That's 31st in the league. You're supposed to be 2-5.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
At best.
And that, I mean, we could sit here. They should be. I could make an easy argument that they'd be 5-2. I can make an easy argument they'd be 2-5. So 4-3 is probably about what they should be.
It's just I go back to what Andrew Berry said during this press conference during the bye week. And he talked about the number one priority going forward for this football team was protecting the football and not turning it over.
Right.
And yet that's an issue that still has not been corrected.
Well, and it's mostly been it's mostly been by the quarterback.
Yeah, whether it's fumbles by the quarterback, no matter who's back there, interceptions by the quarterback, no matter who's back there.
Right.
It's frustrating. You can't win games when you turn the ball over. Real quick, Bull, the running game and the defense. In my opinion, the Browns have a defense and a running game that travels. The Browns ran the ball 40 times yesterday for 155 yards and 3.9 yards a carry.
That's not good.
Yeah, but just hear me out.
Yeah.
You still rank top 3 as far as rushing yards a game.
Just
hear me out. The Browns defense, I think, no, it's not all-time great, but it's still a pretty damn good defense. The whole point to my argument is the Browns got 2 units that in the NFL historically they travel. A good run game and a good defense. And it's so frustrating that we don't get competent quarterback play that would kind of help even everything out.
Yeah.
It's frustrating as hell that this is what we had to deal with all season long.
There's no excuse in my mind. Jason, why do you think the Browns are not going to trade for a quarterback?
I have no logical explanation. Because the Jacoby Brissett makes a lot of sense. I don't know if there's anyone outside of him. To me, it's Brissett. We talked about it last week. He fits on the cap.
Yeah.
He fits with theoretically what you would have to give up, and he knows the system enough to where he could be a plug-and-play guy. Now, he hasn't taken a snap since August of importance, so that's something to factor in. But there's no other great options out there. So it's either Jacoby or stick with what you got, I guess.
I still think Andy Dalton makes some sense too.
But he doesn't know the system and how long is it going to take him to get up to speed.
He's a veteran quarterback. He's played a game this year.
He's not going to play Sunday. Jacoby Brissett, you could trade for him today and he plays Sunday.
Has Andy Dalton ever played in a system similar to what Kevin Stefanski runs?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't.
And the only reason I ask that is because, I want another quarterback too.
Yeah.
But then the other side of it is like, okay, who can you bring in here that'll be ready to play right there?
Yeah.
Outside of Jacoby Brissett or Josh
Dalton
Dobbs.
is a veteran quarterback. Played a ton of games. I don't think this is not rocket science. It's football.
Well,
come on.
Here's.
And by the way, you could survive like the Cardinals at home. Even with P.J. Walker, they should be able to win that game.
Yeah, they should. But and it comes back to Deshaun. And if Deshaun is out for an extended period of time and you can fill in the blank on what that number is, it doesn't matter. You're screwed. We said it all summer long, and it feels like we're trying to move the goalposts on and out. Everybody said it all summer. If Deshaun goes down, it's over.
Right.
Well, guess what? Deshaun went down. And now it's this ambiguous injury of no one really knows when he's going to be back. So you're trying to hold the boat together until he comes back, and then you hope that he plays like he did against Tennessee and not in all the other games before it when he does. It's a really difficult spot to be in. So the only reason to me that you don't make a trade is because you just feel like Deshaun's going to be out a really long time, and it doesn't matter. Because I said it last week, if you're trading for Jacoby Brissett, it's to address the wound. You're not trying to amputate an arm and attach a new one. You're just trying to get through the next couple of weeks. It's triage for the next couple of weeks.
But if they thought he was going to be out for the season, why wouldn't they put him on IR?
Well, and Pam Oliver said before the game that hasn't been ruled out. That was news to me because that had never really been discussed before.
I mean, this idea that even if Deshaun, listen, their defense is not playing as well as it was earlier in the season.
Still a good defense.
It's still a good defense,
but
right?
it's not this historical.
They got a decent running game. And
average. The running game.
Yeah,
I don't know
decent.
why suddenly we're thinking that their running game is.
Well, because they're total yards. It's just because they run a lot. But,
it's very average.
It's
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with
Without
you.
Nick, average is better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be worse than average.
Yeah.
So it's better than I thought, but it's still very average.
But the point is, like, the AFC is very topsy-turvy. I mean, nobody looks that great. The teams look great. Like, the Bengals this week look like the best team in the AFC. But that's 1 week.
Right.
I don't know. Is that what they're going to be the rest of the season?
Miami looked like the
healthy?
best team in the league a couple weeks ago.
Right. And then this week they didn't.
Right.
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
Got boat raced. Wasn't it his first loss to the Broncos or something like that?
I believe so. So nobody's perfect. And defense has seemed early in the season to be catching up with offense a little bit. I'm still not sold that that's the case and that in the second half of the year it won't be different like it was last year. But maybe, so even if it is Jacoby Brissett, yes, ultimately, whether it's P.J. Walker, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton, you're not winning in the playoffs with those guys.
Correct.
Bottom line.
Correct.
You're not going to the Super Bowl with Jacoby Brissett. Anybody being realistic understands that.
Yes.
But let's say Deshaun Watson, you could sit him you shut him down until there's 3 weeks to go in the season. I think with Jacoby Brissett and the rest of the team, you could make the playoffs. I don't think they can with P.J. Walker. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the difference between Brissett and Walker might be a game or even two, and that could be enough to get them in the playoffs.
I mean, maybe they win yesterday with Jacoby. I don't know.
I think they probably would have.
Maybe they do. We'll never know, obviously,
Yeah.
but I do think Jacoby's an upgrade over PJ. To what extent? I don't think Jacoby Brissett is the great savior of Cleveland Browns football this year.
Of course not. No.
Not by any means.
No.
But you're just trying to minimize the damage, and that's why I thought the move would have been made last week. Once Deshaun went down again, once you shut him down again, that's when you say, okay, we have to go do better than this.
Right.
It's not – you can fumble through 1 or 2 weeks with P.J. Walker, and it's sort of like the argument I made with Garoppolo last year. You can fumble through 4 or 5 games with Jacoby Brissett, but when you're talking about 11, you better go do better than that. Well, you can fumble through 1 or 2 games with P.J. Walker, but if you're talking 4 or 5 or 6, you better go do better than that. And that Jacoby is that, to me, is that sweet spot of 4, 5, 6 games. Anything more than that, and you're really exposed to yourself.
So what is the downside to acquiring Jacoby Brissett?
Well, either Washington doesn't want to play ball, which is unfair to Jacoby because it's an opportunity for him to go start.
Right. And I doubt that's the case.
Or they're asking too much. This is a backup quarterback that hadn't thrown a meaningful pass all year. I don't see how the price could be anything higher than what the Browns got for Dobbs, that 5th-round pick.
I could see it being a little higher because Brissett's better.
He hasn't thrown a pass all year. Okay,
4th-round pick, I'd give up a 4.
They don't have a 4. That's part of the problem. They lost their 4 to the Deshaun trade. So that's where maybe things get a little bit sticky. But and every dollar counts. We've talked about it with the cap and with the rollover and everything. And it's not about Jimmy spending money. It has nothing to do with that. It's about trying to fit everything under the cap next year and the year after and the year after.
That's fine, but the Brissett is not going to affect it that much.
Agree.
Yeah.
Every dollar counts, but Brissett at this point is probably around $1.5 million or so.
Yeah.
But also you have really limited resources here in what you can do in trade and with cap and everything else. And if they've identified another spot that they think is more critical, I don't know what could be more critical in the quarterback.
None.
But I'm just saying, I think Diana Rossini from our place said last week they were going to look at a receiver. Okay, well, I'll stand by what I said last week. I don't know how you can evaluate this receiver group when you've got these guys throwing to them that they have throwing to them.
You got to fix the point of getting a receiver if you don't have a quarterback?
If you have P.J. Walker throwing it to him.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, so to me, you have to address the quarterback spot. I don't think they're going to do it.
I don't think so either. Like Mike asked that question yesterday. I said 0% that the Cleveland Browns addressed the backup quarterback position before the trade deadline.
0%.
When Jason said what he said last week, right? We live in 2 worlds sometimes. We live on one part of me, we hope and wish Andrew Berry do this, but then once you get information from a few different sources, you got to come to the reality side of things. They're not calling Washington to trade for Jacoby Brissett. And by all accounts, it looks like, okay, this is what we stuck with.
Yeah.
We stuck with P.J. Walker and we stuck with, DTR. It's frustrating as hell because, I view Andrew Berry smarter than that. I view him as a man that's more prepared than that. And up until this point, anytime that there was an issue with any point or any roster on his position on his team, when it comes to the roster, he kind of did a good job of addressing it swiftly. And it seems like when it comes to this quarterback position, it's like you want to be timid. You don't want to go out there and do what you know is necessary. You're wasting a good defense. I think you're wasting a run game that's, even without Nick Chubb, proven to at least be average. And average is good enough to still be able to give you some success. So, yeah, it's very frustrating to know for a fact that we got to continue to deal with P.J. Walker or DTR until Deshaun Watson comes back. And then even when Deshaun Watson comes back, we don't even know how effective he can be on his team.
We're not going to trust
him. So, it's just frustrating all the way around the board.
One bit of news on the Guardians here real quick before we continue with our Browns conversation. Zach Meisel of The Athletic reports that Craig Counsell is in Cleveland today to meet with the Guardians about their managerial opening. League sources tell him and Will Salmon, also of the Athletic. So Craig Counsell was my top choice to be the Guardians' new manager in Cleveland. He's probably using the Guardians for leverage with the Brewers or Mets, but
yeah, I don't see it.
But
Let me ask you guys a question real quick. In a hypothetical world, the Browns do not make a trade by tomorrow's deadline, by Tuesday's deadline, Bull, by the October 31st deadline, just to make sure we cover all.
Yes.
By Halloween's
I don't know where
deadline.
the lunar eclipse and the moon is, but by tomorrow's deadline at 4 p.m., which means either Deshaun, PJ, or DTR. Let's say Deshaun needs one more week to heal up his shoulder. Would you start DTR against Arizona, or would you roll out PJ Walker one more time?
I'll say, now listen, I'm not in practice, so I don't know what he looks like there. I would, from the outside looking in, I would give DTR a shot because P.J. Walker's played 3 games. He's been awful. Now, DTR was awful in his first game, but he wasn't, he's a rookie, got kind of thrown in there at the last second. I think that was a tough spot. This is a great spot. It's home against Arizona. So if Watson can't go, now, if DTR's been a disaster in practice, then I wouldn't do it, but I don't know that. If he's looked like he's been improving, I would give him a shot. Jason?
Here's why I stick with PJ, even though we just got done just lambasting the poor man. You can't keep this conga line at quarterback. And, okay, so you want to play DTR against the Cardinals, fine. Well, then you're going on the road to Baltimore. That just absolutely dismantled DTR last time he was out there. So you really want to put him back in that environment. I would like to see him get another shot. If Deshaun's really going to be out for an extended period of time, I would like to see Dorian get another chance at this. And Arizona makes sense, but then what are you going to do? Then you're going to stick with him in a Lions den at Baltimore?
I would. If he played, you got to try something.
Yes.
I can't keep this guy.
But they're one bad throw away from winning again with P.J. Walker.
I hear you.
And then we're not having this conversation at all.
P.J. Walker in his career in the NFL, 6 touchdowns, 18 turnovers.
I know.
I mean, this is insane.
I know. I agree.
18. What is he just with the Browns this year?
Just this season.
Yeah, I know he has 2 fumbles lost.
If you go to 14A, Steve, he has 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
Or 6 turnovers, yes. And Steve will pull it up here. He has the 1 touchdown pass to David and Njoku this week.
And no rushing touchdowns.
No rushing touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
5 interceptions. I thought he had 2 fumbles lost.
2 fumbles.
So
yes.
7
turnovers.
1 touchdown and 7 turnovers.
That's crazy.
Under a 50% completion percentage. You really cannot play worse. I don't think it's possible.
But you have, if you still believe Dorian is your long-term investment as the backup, his first experience was awful.
Yeah.
And I think you want to set him up for success. And Arizona does sound like setting him up for success. But then you've got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and those are games you've got to have. You've got to have those games.
What if you think right now, and girl, I'm going to get your take on DTR in 1 second, but what if you think that Watson can be back for Baltimore? If the Browns think Watson can be back for Baltimore, are you more likely to stick with P.J. Walker for one more week, or say, let's get Dorian Thompson-Robinson feeling good against one of the worst teams in the league in Arizona, and then we go back to Watson?
I think I would still stick with PJ because this looks like this is a win on the schedule, right? Like if you see $1 on the ground, bend over and pick it up. And if PJ Walker can beat the Niners and he can beat the Colts despite playing as terrible as he does, I would rather just bend over and pick up the $1. Mm-hmm. If I know Deshaun's coming back against Baltimore, just bend over and pick up the $1. Don't try and get cute. And if it's a wreck with Dorian again, if he's a disaster again, and you got to go back to PJ, the practice reps are really, really important. And I tried to make that point last week, and we saw it. Like PJ, he wasn't good yesterday, but he was better than he was the week before. Why? Well, he had all the practice reps last week. And now if you keep stacking those practice reps and you give him those starters practice reps again this week, now, if you want to throw Dorian in there, now you're starting him off with just 1 week of practice reps. At least with PJ, you're building consistency with practice reps. You're giving him the same looks. You're giving him the opportunity to build on the week before and the week before. Neither situation is ideal by any means. And I know I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth because I do want to get another look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I want to see what he's got. But you're trying to make the playoffs right now, and there's jobs on the line, and you got 2 huge games looming after this one, and I don't know that anyone can say with any sort of certainty right now when Deshaun's going to be back.
I think for me, I look at it like this: the two quarterbacks that's in this room that we know are going to be here is Deshaun Watson and DTR. I honestly wanted to see DTR get another shot the very next week versus San Francisco. The reason being, when you're going up against a defense like that, even if you don't play your best, it's only up from here. There's so many lessons to learn for a quarterback that have to go up against that type of defense. I felt like even if the performance wasn't that great, he could have learned from it and got better. But to me, boy, what they did was, I feel like you kind of like shook his confidence. You know what I mean? The first time you go out there and you do something for the very first time and you don't do it right, and then they snatch it away from you, and then they don't want to give it back to you, now he might be in his head questioning, well, damn, can I do this job for real? Or damn, I thought y'all had my back. He went from quarterback 2 to quarterback 3 just like that, and we ain't heard much else from him.
Would you put him in this week?
No,
at this point.
No, at this point, because I feel like you had your opportunity,
right,
to get him ready weeks ago. And now at this point, if you put him in there, you're taking reps away from P.J. Walker, and he's had the majority of the reps outside of Deshaun Watson for the last 3 weeks. Last week, he just got a full week of practice. Pretty sure he'll get a full week of practice again this week. I just feel like if you was going to see what DTR had again, you had the opportunity to do that the very next week. Instead, you snatched it away from him. And in my mind, I think you did more to hurt him versus help him by doing that. Now, we fast forward to where we are right now. You absolutely need to go out here and beat the Arizona Cardinals. And for as horrible as the situation is, P.J. Walker probably gives you the best opportunity to go out here and beat the Arizona Cardinals. I know that sounds crazy to say that, but that's how I feel. And so going forward, it just feels like this is what we have, and we just going to have to stick it out with PJ until Deshaun Watson comes back.
This is untenable. This is frustrating, and I bet fans have to be losing their minds right now. That PJ Walker probably shouldn't be in the NFL. That's how bad he is.
He's a practice squad emergency third-string quarterback.
At best.
Yeah.
At best. And, by the way, Josh Dobbs, for all the criticism, Josh Dobbs sucks.
Yeah.
He's not any good either. All right? Nice guy. Better than P.J. Walker, probably. But he's also terrible. And he's also way worse than Jacoby Brissett. And everybody wanted Josh Dobbs last year. And everybody wanted DTR. Everybody was all excited, and but now you have to do something. And I'm not buying. I'm not accepting that they're going to do nothing here in the next 20. And it doesn't even have to be in the next 20-something hours, because in theory you could have signed a free agent. I think, Jason, there's no excuses to me. I don't want to hear it. If the Browns don't make the playoffs, I had Berry and Stefanski together. Mm-hmm. But right now, like if you said to me, well, you got to fire one of them. To me, it's no doubt I'm firing Berry before I'm firing Stefanski. Right now. Now, I wouldn't fire either of them right now.
Right.
But if I had to choose, to me, I'm not firing Stefanski.
I mean, he lost Jack Conklin, he lost Nick Chubb, he lost his quarterback, and they're 4-3. I mean, what else do you want from them?
That's right. Now, listen, other teams are dealing with injuries too.
Sure, but those are franchise pillar. Well, not Conklin, but Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson is your entire offense.
I agree with both of y'all, but the reality is if somebody's going to get fired, it will be Kevin Stefanski.
It'll be Kevin.
I don't think
Kevin's going to get fired before Berry?
I think Andrew Berry won't get fired this year at all, no matter what. I really believe
there's no excuse for the state of the Browns quarterback situation.
I agree with
right
you.
Now. No excuse. He has to go get somebody.
Well, if they don't get anyone,
and
they miss the playoffs, maybe we have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I just go back. It really comes down to Deshaun, and it's the ambiguity of this injury that I think is what's so frustrating. I said it last week. If he blew out his knee and he was out for the year, you can have a much different conversation maybe than where we're at now. But it's this, when's he coming back? No one really knows. How long's he out? How long do we have to hold the boat together? And it's the uncertainty of it all.
Well, plus, Jason, as part of what you're saying, sorry to cut you off, but I feel like we've had 6 different breakdowns of what his injury is.
None of it has made sense. None of it has made sense. Go back to the very beginning. Yeah. He says he's going to play. He says all week he's going to play. Everyone thinks he's going to play. He doesn't play. And then he comes back, and it looks like he's throwing a medicine ball in the game against the Colts. Clearly wasn't ready to play. So none of the messaging is lined up. None of this is really making sense. And that's only adding to sort of the haze over the whole thing. But again, we said it all summer. If Deshaun goes down, the season goes down. Well, that's what's happened. And they're still somehow holding this together.
Somehow
they're still holding this thing together. But we said all summer long, if the quarterback goes down, the season goes down. Yeah. And the quarterback went down.
You know, he was asked when he addressed the media this past week, you know, about the 4 to 6 time frame that he told people. And he said, basically, you know, I'm just giving y'all the basic information based off the research that I've done.
Right.
You know what I mean? But he also followed that up with, you know, that was just the basic. I don't know how long I'll be out. I'm not sure when I'll be back. And the fact that the quarterback said itself, I'm not sure, that's more than enough reason for Andrew Berry to go make a move. Boy, I'm with you. Yeah. I think he should go make a move. But I'm telling you, I don't think that he will. Why? Who the hell knows? Because you cannot look at this team, you cannot look at the AFC and see where the Browns are and be like, okay, I'm just going to sit back with what I have. The Browns are still right here in the thick of things, right? And, like, if you're not going to
they're a playoff team as of today.
Exactly. If you're not going to get them a quarterback, then you're wasting the efforts of every other unit on this team. And then you're making it harder and harder to evaluate your head coach. Everybody screaming fired Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski got his issues, but I don't think his issues warrants him to be fired. That's just my opinion. And it's hard to scream that when your general manager is not giving you a competent backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't take, honestly, right now, anybody saying Kevin Stefanski should be fired, I can't take it seriously. I mean, I can't. It's ludicrous.
It's absurd. But here's, I guess, one that we haven't discussed, why you go make a move at quarterback. And I talked about this with the running backs.
The players, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You got a locker room full of veterans, and they're looking at you like, what are you going to do about this?
Yes.
And there are a lot of guys that I think you could lose these guys if you don't do anything. And that is a real concern that I think that they need to consider and discuss.
I think that's 100% true because the veterans on this team, the guys who have suffered through all the losing here, guys like Petonio, guys like Myles Garrett, who had a big sack late in the game, like they got to be thinking, like, okay, come on now, just give us competent play.
Give us a chance.
Here we go again.
Give us a chance.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Go get they got to all be thinking about Jacoby. Have you asked any of the players about Jacoby?
Not specifically, and I don't know, even off the record, I don't know that they would really go there.
Okay.
Because I think that
But they all love Jacoby.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they did.
They would love
But they loved him.
But they know who he is.
But they know his limitations.
Right. But they know he's better than P.J. Walker.
Yes. And he probably gives them a better chance to win.
Jacoby Brissett is a legit top-of-the-line backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And maybe even as high as bottom-of-the-barrel starting quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He is somewhere between the
28
and 35th quarterback.
Let me ask you a question because, you know, I've been screaming the same thing. Go get Jacoby Brissett. And the rebuttal has been with Earl. Why would the Washington Commanders play ball? Jason, you told us that, to your knowledge, as of Friday, the Browns hadn't even made a call.
Had not called.
Let's say, hypothetically, the Browns do call. What would be the reason why the Commanders would tell the Browns no?
I don't know that they would tell them no. I think that they would just try and hold him hostage for a higher price than what he's really worth.
And that could be part of the issue here. I mean, every other team knows how bad a shape the Browns quarterback situation is.
Sure.
And they're going to hold him up for a higher pick.
Which is why I reached out to Diana and said, hey, check with Washington and see if they've even made the call.
Yeah.
And Diana got back to me within 5 minutes. She said I had already checked and they hadn't made the call. Now, that was as of last Wednesday.
Things could change.
It's all it takes is 5 minutes for that to change.
Either one of you ever heard the term, you playing in my face?
No.
So you hear it a lot from women when it comes to the relationships that they are in with men when things is kind of rocky. They say, you playing in my face. Like, to me, that's what the Cleveland Browns are doing. The Browns right now are playing in our face, and we so stupid that we keep allowing them to play in our face, right? You see where the Browns are right now in stance of the AFC. You see what you got with this team. You got a defense that's pretty damn good, top 10 defense.
Yep.
You got a run game that's based on yards per game. It's still a top 5 rushing attack. and yet your general manager is looking at this quarterback situation and trying to convince you that this is good enough to get by.
Yeah.
Trying to convince you that this is good enough in a wide open AFC that will help you have whatever success that you're going to have until Deshaun Watson comes back. And you got a portion of the fan base who's believing it, and you got a portion of the fan base that's saying, man, you out your damn mind.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is they need to add at the position. Will they?
I feel like we're all in agreement.
Yeah,
that PJ Walker is unsustainable with what he's doing. It's like playing with fire. The last 2 weeks, the Browns against Indy and San Francisco had played with fire and got out unscathed.
Yeah.
And this week they played with fire and they got burnt.
And as Jason said, the players know this. The players, the veterans, they're like, you have to give us a chance. We can do it. I want to switch gears to the running game because we've alluded to it a little bit. Mike, do you have some analytics on where the Browns running game ranks?
I'll do a read. I'll look into it.
Because rushing yards per game to me is not a good stat. I mean, yards per attempt is better, but even that's a little flawed.
I pulled up a couple scatter charts over the weekend.
Yeah.
Where they were real close to league average.
Yeah, I feel like the Browns have are middle of the road in running game, and some of that credit goes to the
offensive
line. Thank you.
Hey, the average is better than I thought they were going to be
when
Nick
better.
Went down.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just real quick before we continue moving on here with the running back discussion. If you guys missed it and you guys do want to see someone lose their mind over Kevin Stefanski, I think we've been pretty level-headed. So if you want to see like the extreme anger, the outrage, head over to our post-game show from yesterday. G. Bush lost his mind about the 3rd and 3 play call, and you can still see that. It's on our YouTube page. It was an hour and a half right after the game as the Browns had a chance to win, let it slip out their hands, and then G. Bush kind of exploded on Stefanski afterwards. So
even he calmed down when I talked to him last night about it, at least a little bit. He's an emotional guy, in the moment. And in the moment, everybody gets frustrated. Everybody gets angry.
We was yelling at each other yesterday.
Oh, you were?
Me and G was yelling at each other on the post-game show.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the running game, guys. And I want to start with Pierre Strong because, as you guys know, I was talking all last week. I want to see Pierre Strong. I want to see Pierre Strong. It was a 3-headed backfield with Kareem Hunt getting the most carries. We'll get to Kareem Hunt, his comments after the game. But, guys, I was very impressed with what Pierre Strong did. He averaged over 4 yards a carry in his 10 carries, and then he had that nice catch and run for 40 yards. All total, I believe he had 11 touches for 82 yards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
11 touches, 82 yards, 10 carries, 41, and 1
catch. That's a bad job out of me. I didn't have his 41 yards receiving on there.
Yeah, the 41 yards
The long screen pass, right?
Yeah. And that was all him.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some nice catches. I think they got a little something with this guy. I'm not saying he's a superstar, Jason or Earl, but I think they got a little something with this guy. I want to see more of him.
I like him. I like him. I like actually the room as a whole. You know what I mean? I like Pierre Strong. I think he runs hard. I think he's fast. I think he's a dude that can catch the ball out the backfield. He's somebody that can run between the tackles, and he got enough speed to get outside. He was drafted in the same draft class as Jerome Ford. He was drafted higher than Jerome Ford. That's
right.
So that should say a lot about him. But as a collective unit, Ford, Hunt, and Strong, I think they've done a pretty damn good job of keeping this running game from sinking, in the absence of Nick Chubb. And I would love to see more Strong going forward. And I think when you get opportunities like that, and then you go out there and you prove yourself like that, you're only earning more reps.
Yeah.
I expect to see more reps from him in the Arizona Cardinals game.
Jason, earlier you wanted the Browns to trade for a running back. Yeah. Do you feel that way now?
I mean, if we have to pick, I'd take a quarterback over running back.
Right.
Again, they have limited assets in terms of what they can really do here.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing how the rest of the world lives, right? Like, we lost the trust fund in Nick Chubb.
Right.
And you're no longer living in the high rent district. Now you're scraping to pay your bills every month now, and this is how a lot of the teams do it, where, Jerome Ford gets a few carries, Pierre Strong, hit him with Kareem Hunt on 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to do enough to keep their head above the water, and that's probably how it's going to be the rest of the year. I would, we were talking about the trade scenarios earlier. I love the Saquon Barkley idea that Mike came up with. But they have more press.
He ran it like 40 times yesterday.
Well, they're going to run the wheels off him. They're showcasing him.
Yeah, but if you can get Barkley, he's a game changer.
He's a game changer.
Yeah.
Especially on an offense that needs playmakers right now, right? Yeah. Like, this offense is desperate for playmakers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get a guy like that, like, at one point we were talking Zach Moss, but the Colts, they're playing decent football.
They're not going to trade him.
And I had mentioned Samaje Perine. he's just another piece back.
Right.
I don't think you need a guy like
Right,
that.
right.
If you're not going to get a guy like Barkley,
Right.
and then I don't see the point of getting a running back.
totally
These
agree.
three guys as a trio are doing well enough.
It's like a platoon in baseball. You got the right-handed guy, you
Right.
got the left-handed guy. You're just doing enough to get by.
I think they all complement each other, right? I think Kareem Hunt is the bruiser. I think he's the dude who runs hard, physical downhill, and I think he does enough to kind of like, wear down the opposing defensive line.
Yeah.
And then you bring those two change of pace guys in who can run inside and outside, and I think they all complement each other well. I think they've done a good job of not letting the rushing attack kind of like,
No, they have not been. I remember when Nick Chubb first got hurt, we all, everybody thought they'd be one-dimensional. They have not been
Me and you was in the group
at all.
chat like, go get Jonathan Taylor right now.
Right. Jason said it later.
I said too.
But what did you think of Pierre Strong? Because I really liked what I saw.
I want to see more.
Yeah.
I'm not going to declare him as the answer.
Certainly not.
But there's enough there to say, all right, let's give him some more carries
Yeah.
and see. And when you talk about the success of the run game, you've got two guards that are pretty good run blocking guards. And DeJuan Jones is a little leaky at tackle on the run. He's much better as a pass protector than he is against the run. But right up the middle, between the center and two guards, you got some pretty good run blockers there. So, it makes sense that they could keep this thing going and keep it afloat. And they have.
I know he's had some big plays. I actually like Ford the least of the three guys right now. I think Hunt has his role as the short down back. I think he's good in that role.
Yeah. I've been disappointed with Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
I thought there would be more there than what we've seen. We've seen a little bit of a home run ability. He's broken off a couple of long runs, but outside of that, he looks like just a guy.
It's the lack of consistency. He has the home run ability.
Yeah.
He already has, 2 touchdowns over 40 yards this season. I think he got 3 or 4 plays that's over 50 yards this season. But outside of that, he hasn't had that consistent pace of, this has been a consistent game. His numbers look good due to 1 or 2 big plays per game, but we've yet to see him be consistent for 4 quarters throughout.
For all the talk of trading for a running back, trading for a wide receiver, I know Mike's going to heard some rumor about trading for a defensive lineman, which, if they want to do that, I'm not going to criticize the Browns for adding anybody.
Right.
But I don't see any kind of need at defensive line. But obviously the biggest need's at quarterback. Now, one other thing on the running back situation, Kareem Hunt's played fine considering he's played okay. I didn't like his comments, Jason. Do we have that tweet?
We do. Give me 1 second.
I didn't like these comments by Kareem Hunt.
There's video of it too. I don't know if we're allowed.
I'd like to hear the video. I don't know that he meant it.
No, the video is pretty much exactly how the quote looks.
Oh, okay. Kareem Hunt. This is from Jake Trotter. Not getting the chance to run the ball on the 3rd and 3 late. Quote: I didn't get a chance the whole 4th quarter, so it's cool. I don't know. I just go and play my role. I feel like I could have helped win.
His final touch came with 3 minutes and 36 seconds left in the 3rd quarter.
I got a huge beef with this. Kareem Hunt, no offense, dude. You've been a nice NFL player. You're just a guy right now.
Yeah.
Who the hell is he at this point? He's just a guy.
I thought he was being transparent.
Yeah.
To be totally honest with you.
I hear what you're saying, and I tend to agree with it, but I also see his side of it of like, man, give me a chance to help you, because he didn't play in the 4th quarter against the Colts either until the goal line
But
run.
the other guys, Strong was doing a nice job.
Yeah.
I just like that, a quote like that. Yes, he's being honest.
You were on the street 2 months ago.
And
so you said because he was on the street, he should just shut up and just not say nothing at all?
When you say something like that, you knock your coach and you denigrate the other running backs.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that you're denigrating
and it's not good for the team.
And I wasn't in the locker room. I was not on the trip. I was not in Seattle. But I know those guys well enough to know. I'm sure there's a lot of frustrated guys saying, man, run the ball. Why aren't we running the ball? Let's go.
Pretty sure your boy White was
we talked about Wyatt last week.
What's the benefit to the team of his comment?
None.
Because there's negatives.
Yeah. But I think Earl's right. I think it was just frustration in the moment. It's frustration of he wasn't on the field for the 4th quarter against Indy until the last play. Wasn't on the 4th quarter at all yesterday. And I'm sure he feels like these guys are competitors. I'm sure he feels like I've got more to give.
Right.
For sure. I respect him keeping it real. I respect the transparency, but I also understand that you got to take what comes with whatever you do, right? And with that creates another notion of drama surrounding the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
I seen that and I tweeted out. I said, coming up next on the next episode of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, right.
Because it seems like every week this season it's been something. I've even made the joke the Browns shouldn't be playing on Fox, NBC, or CBS. They need to be playing on VH1 because it seems like a reality TV show.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Seriously, like that's what it seems like.
The Real Housewives of Berea. The Real House Husbands of Berea. I don't know. Anyway, it's like Nick Chubb would never make a statement like that.
No, probably
Never.
Not. Probably not.
And yes, okay, he's honest, fine. And honestly,
I'm not going to knock a guy for being honest.
I know
I'm never going to knock a guy for being honest.
I am torn about that, but it's not a positive for the team for him to say that.
I mean,
not at all.
Not for the team, but like I said, I respect somebody for being fully transparent and keeping it real. Like,
listen, I'm not killing him, but I just
mean,
don't like
what is he supposed to do? Go out there and lie, be fake? Like, people don't know what they want.
Most players and most coaches are fake.
Yeah, you damned if you do, you damned if you don't.
That's true.
So,
yeah,
that's true. Fair enough. All right, Mikey, go ahead.
I got a couple. So the week isn't officially over, so a lot of the advanced analytics don't get updated until the week is completely complete.
Yeah.
So they have it all online.
Sure.
So nothing's necessarily up to date. They're essentially middle of the pack in anything in terms of success rate, in terms of expected points per average over. But the one kind of interesting thing I did find, and this is updated because PFF updates it on a game-by-game basis, it's not an advanced analytic by any means, but there are specific areas of the line they're just way more effective running at and behind than they are at others. So through all the games now, so through 7 games, they are at their best running behind Jed Wills and behind Wyatt Teller. And other than that, they are bottom of the barrel running behind Jed Wills, running right up the middle on their center, running to the right tackle. We're talking a 5.4 yards per carry
You said Jed
average.
Wills, they were good.
Dwan Jones, sorry, excuse me. They're good behind Jed Wills.
So they're good on the right side, running the ball.
Wait, say it again?
They're good behind Jed Wills,
Yeah.
who's the left tackle.
Yeah.
And they're good behind Wyatt Teller, who's the right guard.
Okay.
Anywhere else, it drops significantly.
That's
so
surprising.
On 47 carries to either the inside or the outside of Jed Wills, they're averaging 5.4 yards per carry on 47 carries. Behind Wyatt Teller, so either to his left or his right, they're averaging 8.1 yards per carry. A little bit inflated by the long touchdown run last week by Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
But still, 23 carries, 187 yards. There is not another position on the offensive line where they're averaging more than 4 yards per carry.
I thought they'd be better at center.
That's tricky. I don't know if I love that stat. It's a little tricky,
I'm just giving
but
you what I could find updated. So that was on the
I think the bottom line for the Browns running game is they're middle of the road. And considering where we thought they'd be when Nick Chubb got hurt, that's not bad.
I'll take middle of the road.
Middle of the road is acceptable.
Yeah.
I'll take it too.
I heard him on the broadcast talking about how they haven't missed a beat and they're still like this elite running team. And I'm like,
no.
have I been watching the same games? Like,
by the way, Adam Amin, who did the play-by-play, is one of the best play-by-play guys out there.
He's
excellent.
excellent.
Is absolutely excellent. But at one point he said, I imagined every Browns fan watching the game losing their mind when he said it. At one point he goes, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is back to return the punt. He's a dangerous return man. And I pictured everybody, especially like J and G, losing their minds on that.
What do you think, Elijah
But
Moore?
Adam Amin is great.
What do you think Elijah Moore returning punts?
He did fine.
Yeah.
He caught the ball.
Yeah.
And Bull, one more thing.
That's the bar. That's the bar.
That's the ball right there. You got to at least catch it.
Yeah.
One more thing on the running game.
Yeah.
And this does play into what you're saying about they do have the second most rushing yards per game.
Yeah.
They average by far the most carries per game in the NFL. So they have 238 carries on the season. That's 6 in the NFL, but the other teams ahead of them have all played at least 8 games, and the 6 teams below them. So of the top 12, they are the only team in the top 12 with only 7 games played. They average about 4.5 more carries than any other team in the league per game.
What are the Browns average? I'd like to look up what the Browns are averaging yards per carry, just running backs. You don't have to look it up now, but I just think that would be kind of.
Browns are averaging 34 carries per game, though, as a team. 34 carries per team. The next highest in the league is 31.5. So.
We're going to get to defense in just a minute, Mike, but I know a lot of fans are interested in what we have to say, or they have interested in making their comments, or what do you got? You got any feedback from the fans right now before we go to the defense here in a sec?
Yeah, we'll get a couple in real quick, then we're going to do another fan delivery. We'll get back into it.
Yeah.
But DB Dog 21 said, Kevin Stefanski's trying to win the game at the moment. I understand the pass, but Adams made a great play. If he hits the pass, we win. So if you want to fire Kevin Stefanski, then we have to cut Cam Mitchell for dropping the pick 6. You don't become a great coach overnight. Give him time. Brody's bottom line says, Jason, you just don't like Kareem. Be honest. You sound foolish.
I like Kareem just fine. I like him fine. All I said was he's got 3 wheels left. And the numbers bear it out. Like, he's not this elite back anymore. He's not a feature back anymore. And everyone was so excited when he came here. All I was doing was trying to reset expectations.
He's just a guy.
And he's been exactly what I thought he would be. He's been great. Like, I've said it before. Around the goal line, give him the ball.
Yeah.
Like, when there was a play where I forget what game it was, where I said I trust the ball in Kareem's hands more than Jerome Ford's in terms of fumbling.
You just said that Friday.
Yeah. So
don't listen. Listen, Jason is the most unemotional person on here.
I'm dead inside. I've said it 100 times.
He doesn't hate or love anybody. So when you accuse him of hating the guy, you're always wrong. It doesn't matter who the player is.
Yeah.
I can't think of a player that I actually think you actually hate.
No.
Only player I know he liked is MJ Emerson.
I do like him.
That's the one dude I know. That's
we'll
his
get
dude.
to him. We'll get to the
I do like
the
MJ.
defense in about 60 seconds. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I got 2 more real quick, and
Yeah.
I know we're going to get back to this a little later, but Paramajot Sandhu says, Kevin did call a great game, but when it comes down to situational football, he's terrible just because the Browns' history is so bad.
not true.
Doesn't mean we as fans should stand for mediocre coaching, and I know Earl wants to touch on that in a little bit, so we'll get back to that. We'll do one more real quick, but Matthew Culpa says, fans who want Stefanski fired just want to keep living in the past and live in constant rebuild mode. We're going to read the rest of those a little later in the show. 2 things before we get into the Defense Bowl. First, tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of our membership tiers. So tomorrow, if you've been an official member of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show for a year, we're going to give you a little special shout-out tomorrow on the show. And we're going to continue to give some shout-outs to the other 1-year anniversary members throughout the week. So we appreciate everyone who is part of that group, and we're going to give you guys a little special shout-out in the next coming days. And it starts, as Bull alluded to earlier, on Tuesday, which is October 31st.
Right.
Which is also the second day of the week, which is also the NFL trade deadline. All right,
also
guys, let's talk
Halloween.
a little defense. It's also Halloween. And before we do defense, we need to remind everybody, if you're looking to dress up as a sports book for Halloween, you better be dressing up as FanDuel because it is unquestionably the #1 sports book in all of America. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets by winning any $5 money line bet. That's a $5 money line bet that if it hits, you get $150 in bonus bets. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use, including a wide range of betting options from player props to spreads, over-unders, and much, much more. We showed you a 5-part parlay earlier in the show that hit $5 turned into $377. So you could be the next big winner, and we'll feature you here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, an official partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
I got a question.
Yes, sir, Earl.
How in the hell can you dress up as a sports book?
That's what the creative
Figure it
people
out.
do.
You got to be creative,
Yeah.
bro.
Me and Anthony straight looked at each other through the glass like, wait, what are you talking
I
about?
can think of many ways you could dress up as a sports book.
Yeah, it could be a book with sports on it.
Yeah.
Easy.
By the way, the line has already gone down. The Browns opened at FanDuel as a 7.5-point favorite. The line is currently, I'm looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook as we speak. The line is now 7. Now it's going to take a lot to drop under 7.
I would wait for it to go 6.5, and I'd pound on that.
The Browns?
Yeah, I'd jump on that. And I didn't find exactly
Over
what I was
under
looking for.
38.5. Go ahead.
But since Nick went down, Browns are averaging 3.9 yards a carry. That ranks 20th in the NFL. So very average.
That's true. Some of the Browns' numbers still have Nick Chubb as a
Nick's,
factor.
yeah, since Nick went down, they're 20th in yards per carry. So it's not exactly what I was looking for earlier, but that's good enough.
But again, we might have guessed worse than that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3.9, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the defense.
And by the
though.
way, 1 second before we go to the defense, that includes quarterbacks too, which could skew the numbers a little bit. Okay, let's go to defense here. Mike, did you have a question you wanted to ask us about the defense?
Yeah, I'll start with this, and then you guys can take it in any direction you want. But for the first for the first 5 weeks, the Browns defense allowed 200 yards per game, essentially. We showed that stat. Through 5 games, they'd allowed 1,002 yards, which was the most, or the fewest in NFL history, the best. And then they had a little struggles against Indianapolis. And then we see Seattle early on. They got gashed in the first quarter. Then they became back to that original form. Locked Seattle down for 43.5 minutes for that last drive where Seattle marched down the field to take the lead.
Yeah.
How can you explain the inconsistency with that group? Because that's what I'm struggling the most to wrap my head around.
Well, because that's the NFL in this day and age. And that's why the early, even though the numbers were eye-popping, the early conversation about all-time defense was a silly one. I thought it was a silly one the entire time we were having it, But because the numbers were so eye-popping, we did it. The reality is when you think of great defenses, there's no team in recent years. Like that Seahawks defense was very, very good. But does anybody think of that Seahawks defense when they won the Super Bowl? How many years has it been since they won the Super Bowl now?
11, because it was 2012.
Even that Seahawks defense, guys, 11 years ago that won the Super Bowl, which was really good. I don't think of that defense in the same class as the 85 Bears, as those Giants teams, as those Ravens teams.
Well, what those teams all had was multiple Hall of Famers on one side of the ball.
Yes.
And I don't know if the Seahawks will have that. So that's one difference. I'm trying to remember who exactly was on that defense.
Is Richard Sherman a Hall of Famer?
Don't ask Tyvis.
I think he will be, yeah.
I think
Bobby Wagner a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, Bobby Wagner a
think
Hall
so.
of Famer.
I'm not sure.
Bobby a Hall of Famer.
Is he?
Bobby,
I don't know.
I think so.
I don't know. I think
How do we know that? Like, it's defense. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I never thought of either of those guys as Hall of Famers. I thought of them as like the tier below that. Like,
What about
really,
He's a
Panther?
really good.
6-time first-team All-Pro. Like,
Who's what?
Bobby Wagner has 9 All-Pro teams in his career, 6 first teams, 3 second teams.
That sounds like Hall of Fame.
It
Probably.
could, yeah.
What about
so
what
maybe
about
they
Richard
will.
Sherman?
Yeah.
Richard
I'll say
Sherman,
this. Why he's looking it up?
Richard Sherman has 5 All-Pro teams, 3 first teams, 2
Like
second
Bull,
teams.
like Bull said, this the NFL. I think people forget offensive coordinators, head coaches, offensive players, they get paid too. And I think the Browns defense has been damn good, but I also feel like they've put so much out there on film that now they're starting to get exploited a little bit at the things that they do really well. And now it's up to Jim Schwartz to kind of go back, look at the film, and make adjustments to the adjustments. I thought he did a damn good job in game, adjusting to the things that the Browns were not doing pretty good to start the game. And the defense ended up holding Seattle's offense scoreless up until the final minutes of the fourth quarter. And so I just look at it as like, it's not an overreaction for me. I think the defense is still damn good. I just look at it as, okay, offenses are starting to see the Browns do X, Y, and Z well. Here's how we can counter that. And I think now Jim Schwartz needs to take that film and say, okay, they're starting to counter what we do well. So here's our adjustment to whatever adjustments that opposing offenses are making.
Jason?
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything both you guys have said. Part of this is regressing to the mean, where it probably was untenable. I mean, they were on a historic pace. They were putting up numbers that aren't allowed to be put up in this game of space and throwing the ball all over the field and everything else. I still think it's a really, really good defense. But, yeah, I think there's concern over the fact I mentioned earlier. The Niners, you pin them deep, and they run right down the field on you, and they get in position to score late in the game.
Yeah.
The Colts hang 38 on you. The Seahawks, after a sudden change turnover, you're counting on your defense to bail you out.
And the Ravens, they didn't play well.
And the Ravens, they got destroyed.
Yeah.
And we kind of chalked up the Ravens to, well, turnovers, short fields, which is still true and all fair. But now when you stack that with more sketchy performances on top of it, you know, I still think this is a really good unit. I don't know that it's the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Ravens of 2000.
No.
You know, Myles Garrett, I think, is a future Hall of Famer at the rate he's going. I don't know. I think it's too early to say with some of these other guys. Denzel, you know, it's way too early in their careers to say.
Yeah.
Dalvin Tomlinson, no. Zadarius Smith, no.
No.
So it's still built on one guy from a talent standpoint of one elite, supernatural type of player. And they've done a tremendous job with the pieces that they have. And I still think it'll be a good defense all year long. But certainly they've shown some cracks here. And, you know, I don't know if we really touched on this in the show or not, but they don't play a ton of good quarterbacks here going forward. You know, I mean, Lamar Jackson coming up. But other than that, you know, you got Josh Dobbs this week. The Steelers are a wreck.
Right.
So Trevor Lawrence is coming down the road.
Trevor Lawrence is playing. They're playing really well.
And
you got
Burrow
Trevor
again.
Lawrence, a healthy Burrow probably, and Lamar Jackson.
And that's really about it.
Right? Are they? Who else?
That's it. We'll look at the schedule right here for anyone who wants to see it with us. Steve, you can take that poll, and we'll go through this. They have Josh Dobbs and then Lamar Jackson. They avoid potentially Kyler Murray because he will not play. Steve, we'll go to the next one here as we continue to work through the schedule. Then it's Kenny Pickett.
Could be Trubisky
Pickett or Trubisky.
They both stink. Russell Wilson's playing a little better this year. He's been better. Matthew Stafford's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
But he got hurt yesterday.
He's hurt. And I heard a report today on Twitter that he may be headed to the IR.
Oh, really?
Which would put him in jeopardy of that game. So he's very TBD for that moment.
Yeah, obviously Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback in Week 14. The Bears
are a wreck.
Probably Fields back by then. Texans, Stroud had his worst
well.
game, but he had his worst game yesterday.
Well.
Jets bad quarterback, obviously.
We could see Aaron Rodgers back, though, if he continues
No.
remarkable recovery from the Achilles.
I would be.
No.
Come
I'd be
on.
shocked
I
too,
knew,
but I'm
I
just
knew
saying
that
it's
was coming.
Not totally out of the question.
Of course it's out of the question. Nobody comes back from an Achilles that quick.
Nobody also goes into a black hole for 4 days and decides to come
Get
out.
out. He's
Aaron
not
Rodgers done a lot of things not many
The
people do.
Yes,
so.
they don't face a ton of great quarterbacks. And that's the thing. Like, I look at the Browns defense. They got overhyped the first couple of weeks. And it's a very good but in the big picture, it's a very good defense. It's not a special defense. If you look at I think the secondary is pretty special.
Yeah.
I think Denzel Ward and Emerson are a special combination at corner. I think they got very good safety play. If you look at the front seven, though, overall it's played well. But their front seven outside of Myles Garrett, nobody's special.
Right.
They have a lot of solid guys, but nobody's special. Zadarius Smith is at this point in his career is not a special player. Nobody else on their D line or linebacker is they don't have any all-pro caliber players in the front seven except for Myles Garrett.
Do they have the best cornerback tandem in the league? I think they might.
And one of them.
I think they might.
The Seahawks is really good.
Seahawks is good. The Jets got a good quarterback tandem.
Jets are really good.
The Browns got a good one.
They're in the conversation.
They're definitely in that
Yeah.
conversation. You know, I'm like Jason. I'm a huge fan of MJ Emerson, man. And he went out there yet again and he balled his ass off. I mean, he was on DK Metcalf pretty much the whole game. DK had 14 targets, 5 catches for 67 yards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I felt like DK won the matchup a few times, but for the most of it, like MJ had him on lock. And then you go out there and you get your second interception within a 3-week time span. I'm telling you, it's the hair.
They should have had another pick, man. They would have won the game.
Jason, it's the hair. No, that was it's the hair.
That wasn't him, not him.
It was Cam Mitchell.
Cam Mitchell.
Yeah.
You got to
He
make
still
that
should be
play.
doing
catch.
push-ups and running laps.
You got to make that play.
But
That's a pick six right there.
Emerson has – I don't want to get hot takey. Emerson has everything you want in a cornerback.
He's very good.
He's got
very, very
size, length, strength, decent hands, good
Yeah.
speed. Like
If I'm the Browns, I'm letting Newsom walk at the end.
I can't.
Isn't Newsom a free agent at the end of the year?
No, next year.
No, next
Next year,
I
he get
can't-
his 5th-year option this
How
year.
did Martin Emerson fall? What was it, 4th round?
3rd round.
Third?
Yeah.
SEC cornerback. Now, I mean, Mississippi
No
State.
interceptions. That's what they said it was because he didn't have the turnover number. But I remember seeing some stats like, you know, he didn't give up more than 4 catches to any SEC wide receiver when they was matched
It's
up
the
on
SEC.
him.
He went in the same round as David Bell and Cedric Tillman and Anthony Schwartz.
Yeah, well, they can.
But he got this one right.
They can identify the DBs better
Yeah.
than they can the receivers.
My God, no, he's really good, and they've got a great combo there. They're it's just. Does anybody disagree about what I said about the front seven?
No.
Nobody
other-
special.
No, it's nobody special.
Outside of Myles Garrett.
A lot of quality guys, but
A lot of quality players. And I'm not saying that to crap all over them. Saying that I think the Browns do have one of the 5 best defenses probably in the league.
Yeah.
But it's not head and shoulders above.
You're just saying they're not the 2000 Ravens or the
Of course
85
not.
Bears.
They're not. They're not in that
Or the
conversation.
2002
no way.
Bucks.
Go ahead.
One thing that I have noticed about the Browns defense, early in the year, against the run, teams had 0 success. None.
Right.
Zilch, not at nothing.
Yeah.
And in each of the last 3 weeks, and it was a little bit in San Francisco early, then they kind of locked it down. But Indianapolis and Seattle both had a lot of success on the ground.
Well-
and they had a couple long runs that throw off the numbers, but Kenneth Walker got loose on the first drive, 45-yard run. Zach Charbonneau, whatever you pronounce it.
Yeah.
He got loose late in the game. Last week, Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss both had some bigger holes. And I'm curious if teams have found some sort of blocking advantage to counteract how aggressive Schwartz
Well,
and his
and
defensive line
Earl
are
talked
coming
about
down.
that, and we've talked about how aggressive they are at attacking the quarterback, and they mentioned it on the broadcast. It was Daryl Johnston was the analyst, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they're a great combo. Adam Amin and Daryl Johnston. Daryl Johnston made a great point of when he talked about the Browns giving up some big plays. He's like, when you're as aggressive as the Browns are, you end up with a lot of guys at the same level. So there are plays where all the linebackers and all the defensive linemen are right there. And so if you get through that initial line, there's a lot of room to run. And we saw that on the big Kenneth Walker play. And, Mike, you said, well, they played well run defense in the second half against the Niners. Well, that's because McCaffrey didn't play in the second half. So really, they have not stopped the run well.
Well, they faced some really good running backs in that stretch too. Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker, McCaffrey before he got hurt.
Right.
So that plays a role in it as well.
Yeah, I mean,
these are really good
one
backs.
good running back they shut down was Derrick Henry. That was the one guy. By the way, he's another guy that could, I guess, be traded. Although the way Will Levis played for the Titans yesterday, if I'm them, I'm not trading anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, he looked good.
To me, the only team in the AFC that should be packing it in is New England.
I thought Adam Schefter came out with a report yesterday saying that Tennessee informed Derrick Henry that they wouldn't trade him, even though teams had called to inquire. So
I thought the report was
I heard the same
that
thing.
they weren't looking to trade him, but they would listen, which every team should listen on every player all the time.
I saw the one Earl's referring to where they were not interested.
But anyway,
I love those.
Right, those are stupid.
Well, listen, but we're not looking to move or whatever.
Right.
It's basically saying, please come make an offer.
So somebody call and offer you a first-round pick for Trent Richardson, then all of a sudden now we can talk about it.
There's not a ton of teams that are completely out of it. So there's not a lot of teams that are, especially when 14 teams make the playoffs, every team in the AFC except for the Patriots is within 3 games of first place. With 10 weeks to go, with either 8 or either 10 or 9 games left in the season for every team. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of teams looking to blow it up, but like Carolina certainly, maybe Washington, Arizona might trade some guys, although with Kyler Murray coming back, they may want to not totally, blow up their team. We'll see. But go ahead, Mike.
No, you can finish. I just have one more question for you
before we
move on to the next
one.
Yeah. So we have done this in the past, and I didn't necessarily put it in the rundown, so I apologize, but I'm going to ask you guys right now. If we're going to assign portions of the blame pie on this game, what percentage does the defense get? What percentage does P.J. Walker get? Stefanski, and then anyone else you want to throw in there?
Well, let me start with this because this is part of that conversation. I was just going to get to this. We've alluded to it a little bit, but the bottom line in yesterday's game, all the talk initially was about the 3rd and 3. Mm-hmm. But where did the Seahawks start that final drive with 2 minutes to go?
The 43-yard line.
Their own 43-yard line.
They went 57 yards in less than a minute.
57 yards. Okay? If you're going to be the best defense in football, you can't give – even if the Browns' defensive would have held them to a field goal, at least you can go to overtime.
Yep.
And maybe you would have – who knows?
You probably lose in overtime with P.J. Walker.
Who knows?
But you give yourself a chance.
You can't let the Seahawks – they went – just right through them.
Yeah.
After they had played great for 3 quarters. That is inexcusable, the way the defense collapsed at the end of the game. It felt like they lost all their energy after that turnover.
I wonder if, they was kind of, mentally deflated or if they were emotionally deflated because I made this point yesterday on a post-game show. The 3rd and 3 interception was horrible. It don't take rocket science. You don't need bifocals to figure that out. That was horrible. But just as bad, a defense that had corrected their issues all game, get in that situation. You didn't even hold them to a field goal attempt.
Yeah. Right.
You allow these dudes to drive straight down the field, marching into the end zone for a touchdown, and I felt like you. I felt like, man, y'all should have tightened up and played better than that.
Yeah. You're the top unit. Right now.
You top dog.
You top dog. You got to
top dog.
Seal the deal.
Yeah.
That interception would have meant nothing if they would have stopped them for 3 and out.
This wasn't the Jets last year, obviously, but this felt like a game the Browns had won, at least to me. I texted you guys and said, this is a great Kevin Stefanski game.
Yes.
This is the game where he's going to get all the flowers now, and then it all unraveled on him in the last 2 minutes. But for the defense, I think it was an emotional swing where it's those sudden change moments. You think you're going to win the game, you're 2 minutes from winning the game, and now you're out there, you need to stop, whereas had they been able to punt them deep or whatever, now you have a different mentality of being able to stop them other than now the crowd's in it, now they've got the momentum and everything else.
Right.
That's not to make an excuse for them, though. You got to get a stop there. If you are what you think you are and you are what you say you are, you have to get a stop there because the offense puts you in a bad spot. But you also know the limitations of this offense right now, and you have to be the backbone of this team.
That's right.
And you didn't deliver for them.
And the offense put them in a bad spot, but not that bad a spot. They still had to start in their own territory.
Right.
It wasn't like it started at the Seahawks 20.
It started at the 30.
I mean, at the Browns 20 or 30. They still had to. And again, a field goal, stopping them for a field goal, we could have lived with that.
Yeah.
And they didn't even touch Jackson Smith and Jigba on that touchdown throw.
Here's how the play-by-play of that final drive went, and you guys can tell me. just bear with me for a sec. Let's say they run the ball, they don't get it, and they punt. I know, Jason, you said Stefanski probably goes for it if it's 4th and 1. Let's say
I think it's a
another,
good chance, but yeah, go ahead.
I would.
Let's just say they punt and they get down to the 15-yard line. Whatever it is, this is how the Seahawks with 2 timeouts then progressed. First play after the interception, a short 7-yard pass to Tyler Lockett brings it to the 50-yard line. No huddle, a 9-yard completion to DK Metcalf to Cleveland's 41. The very next play, Noah Fant, 14 yards to the 27-yard line. So in 3 plays, they had just moved 43 yards down the field.
Yeah.
Then it's the 12-man on the field penalty, and then it's the short touchdown pass, the little bubble screen to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who goes untouched into the end zone. Was there a hold on DK Metcalf? Maybe, iffy, whatever. They didn't call it. Live with the situation.
If you're a Browns fan, you can't complain.
No, I'm just saying. Live with it. They didn't call it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in 6 plays, they went 53 yards. They averaged damn near 9 yards a play.
Yep.
And that was the only penalty on that drive, Mike?
Yes.
A 12-man.
Yeah, and I noticed, I think Kevin Stefanski tried to call a timeout before the flag was thrown. It wasn't even 12. They had 13 dudes on the field.
Oh, my God. I didn't realize
so
that.
I just think that, like I said, a series of events in the last few minutes of the game ultimately cost the Browns the victory. But I'm like you, and I'm like you. The defense right now, y'all top dog. Y'all are the best unit on this team. More is expected of that particular unit than it is anybody else due to the circumstances.
Yeah.
Watson is hurt. Chubb is hurt. So now we leaning on you all. And you all have given us enough to show that, you know what, we're not wrong for leaning on you all. You've played pretty damn well. And so even if you would have gave up the field goal, I could have lived with that. I was mind blown that this defense, who has shut down Seattle's offense for the better part of the game, like, just let them walk straight down the field.
Yeah, that was very disappointing.
San Francisco all over again.
Yeah.
They shut off the water in San Francisco for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters. Yeah. The first drive on the Niners, obviously, went down and scored. After that, nothing until the end of the game, and they went right down the field and got in the field goal range. Can't happen.
The defense has got to be better. This week, there's no excuse. You're playing one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in Josh Dobbs. They don't really have a running game in Arizona. Anyway, we'll talk more about next week. Go ahead, Mike.
It's funny you mentioned that Arizona has a running game. Steve, go to 10 real quick. You take 10 full. They're actually 4th in the league in rushing yards per game, which goes to show you
yards per
game.
Because James Conner was actually running well for them, but he's hurt.
No, I know, but I'm just saying rushing yards per game is not necessarily an indication.
Oh, yeah. But no, James Conner was doing well. They had a better running game, but then he got hurt 2 weeks ago, and he's on IR.
So he's officially out this week. He can't play, right?
Yeah, he's on IR.
Yeah. That's a huge loss for Arizona and a big benefit here for the Cleveland Browns.
Was that last year or the year before when he played the Cardinals? Was that last year, 2 years ago?
When they lost out there?
No, when they came here they had this crazy defensive scheme that they was running.
I think it was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
The Cardinals being here last year.
Yeah. You can't lose to the Cardinals.
It was the Freddie year. I think they went out there and lost.
Yeah. But Arizona came here maybe last year or the year before that, man, and straight put a whooping on us. Like, the defense came out and just straight shut down everything that we were trying to do. Yeah. I know it's different circumstances surrounding both teams, man, but games like this, they worry me a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think this Browns team has a tendency to play down to their opponent like other teams do. I just know that this is a game you cannot lose.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it a must-win, but it is a got-to-have-it game, especially with the next two that are.
There's no excuse for losing this game.
Yeah.
You need to win this game. I'm not worried about it. I think they'll take care of it. There's no listen, the Browns under Kevin Stefanski this year have showed up ready to play in 6 out of 7 games.
Absolutely.
They were not ready to play that Ravens game. You give Stefanski certainly some of the blame on that. The other 6 games, even when they've been outmanned, they have been ready to play.
Absolutely. He's gotten the best out of this team.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Say what you want. He's gotten absolutely everything he can out of this team.
So I'm not worried that they're going to come out and not play. I think the reason they were not ready for that Baltimore game had a lot to do with what happened with Watson that week. And I think they'll be ready to play against Arizona, and there's no excuse for losing that game at home. None. Go ahead, Mike.
Real quick, and I asked this question, and then we went into the defense. But real quick, let's just assign slices of the blame pie, and then we'll talk about the rest of the AFC North.
Blame pie for the loss. What are our options again? Defense?
Stefanski, PJ Walker, and then if you want to add anyone else into that conversation, you'd be my guest.
Okay. What's your pie blame? Who wants to go first? Jason, you want to go first?
I think, PJ's the one who has the ball in his hands.
You feel guilty blaming him because he
is what he is.
But
I remember going back to when Brian Hartline said about, like, you can only ask a guy to do what he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
And the Browns are asking P.J. Walker right now to do more than what he's capable of doing. So it's hard. I mean, I'm going to be lame and say just cut it into thirds, I guess. Ultimately,
third for Stefanski.
Well, ultimately it falls on him. He's the head coach, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think and again, like I gave you the numbers at the start of the show. If you want to say they should have run the ball, well, then you've got the numbers to back it up since the start of 2020. There's a higher conversion rate running on 3rd and 3 than there is throwing on 3rd and 3. Fine. If you want to be upset, fine. Just this idea that you have to fire the coach after every loss is what makes me roll my eyes and gives me a headache. But he's the head coach. He's culpable.
Yeah.
But I'd probably put more of it on the defense in PJ.
I mean, for me, since I have to put a percentage on this, I would give more of the percentage to P.J. Walker for the simple fact, like 3 turnovers came off of you, 2 interceptions, and then you lost a fumble. So at the end of the day, when you turn the ball over, you put yourself in a situation to lose. But overall, I hate these type of questions. Like I've said this a few times since he's passed away. I had the opportunity to like be around Jim Brown, and this particular quote that he said, he says, you know, in the NFL and in football, you need all 11 parts moving in the same direction in order for you to have success. And the moment that one part is not moving in that direction as the other 10, then you won't have success. So what am I saying? We went out there as a team, we played hard, and we lost as a team. Like, there was a few moments to where you could point at Stefanski for calling the play. You could point at P.J. Walker for not being able to be accurate. You could point at the defense for giving up the touchdown. We went out there as a team, played hard as a team, and we lost as a team. Get your ass back to Cleveland, get ready to go play the Arizona Cardinals, and win.
Neither one of these guys really answered your question, Mike. There were no percentages given by either
I
of these
said
guys.
cut it to thirds, and then I kind of shaved Kevin's piece down.
I'm going to say 50% on the defense, 40% on P.J. Walker, 7% on Andrew Berry, and no, I'm giving Andrew Berry more blame because he hasn't gotten a quarterback. 30% on P.J. Walker, not 18% on Andrew Berry, and 2% on Stefanski.
Okay, now wait. Do you really think Andrew Berry walks in there and said, "Nope, we're not trading for a quarterback. I don't care what you say"?
Who else? What?
I think it's a collaborative decision among
You don't think Kevin Stefanski wants a better quarterback?
I'm just saying I think it's a collaborative decision. I don't think Andrew Berry's going to walk in and say, la, 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 la. We're not trading for a quarterback. I don't care what you say.
I don't think Stefanski is in on it.
He represents the front office. You want him and Di Podesta together.
I just think it's a collaborative
But the defense
decision.
really deserves the most blame. Because if I would have told you guys before this game that the Browns, what was the final score, 24-20?
Yeah.
If I would have told you before the game the Browns were going to score 20 points in this game, wouldn't you think they would have won? I would have.
What if I told you?
It's hard to say because the 24 points that Seattle scored is right on their yearly average. The Browns is averaging around 19
if the Browns have
points
such
a game,
a good defense, then Seattle shouldn't be on their yearly average. They should be well below that.
What if I told you the Browns would have their defense on the field up by 4 with a minute 19 to play?
Up by 3.
Up by 3 with a minute 19 to play.
Win the game. Win the game.
Win the game. Yeah, I like Mike's better. That's fair.
The Browns'
I said it,
defense
so of course that's
underachieved more than P.J. Walker based on my expectations.
I agree with that. I don't think Kevin Stefanski is in on this collab decision. I think if Andrew Berry and Paul Di Podesta and everybody is collabing and saying, you know what, we don't need a quarterback, Stefanski is somewhere like, hey, man, what the hell? Somebody go get me a quarterback right now.
I don't understand.
I just think it's I don't know. I'm not in the room. But I have a hard time believing that they're just...
He's totally out of the loop on this?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just like, man, you know, like every I do the post-game shows, and it's like, man, fire Stefanski, fire Stefanski, fire Stefanski.
It gets...
When
have the Browns fans ever liked the head coach? When have they ever liked him?
I was really, when you asked me that before the show.
They liked Stefanski his first season.
They liked him his first season. I think they liked Chud.
Well, they like every coach.
Was like a home.
Well, again, if you're from Cleveland, it don't matter what you are.
But it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
they like every coach in the first
year.
He
has his deficiencies. He has his issues, like most people. But, you know, I don't go around talking about who I know, what I know. I know a few people who play for this team. And I've asked straight up, off the record, like, no, they respect Kevin Stefanski as a man. They respect Kevin Stefanski as a leader. He definitely has some things he needs to clean up, man, but what coach in the NFL don't?
Right.
It's just the whole fan base where every single week, fire Stefanski, guys. Like, he's not going nowhere.
No.
Browns fans hated Bill Belichick.
He's going to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns for the remainder of the season.
Fans want to win. When you don't win, the fans get pissed.
Yes.
It's the same thing with every fan base in America.
To echo what Earl said, though,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, the players love Stefanski.
Yeah.
I say it all the time.
They love
exactly.
Stefanski, and we can complain, we can moan, we can
Right.
do whatever we want.
He's a good
The guys
coach.
in the locker room like him, and that's
He's
going
a
to outweigh
solid
all the
NFL
fan.
coach. The odds of finding a coach that's definitely going to be better are not likely. Like, again, he's in that second group of coaches, which is most of the league, that are pretty good coaches. There's 5 guys that suck. There's 5 guys that are great. And everybody else is pretty good, ebb and flowing, depending on the talent they have.
All you got to do, I've said this before, they lost that horrible game to the Jets last week in week 2. They came back 4 days later and beat Pittsburgh at home. You know how hard that is to do, coming off a gut-wrenching loss like that?
Yeah.
Then they lose this year in Pittsburgh in a terrible week 2 loss, not as bad as the Jets, but it was a bad loss. To lose it the way they did with a fumble late and a a defensive touchdown, and then they came back the next week and won. He gets these guys ready to play.
Winning against the Niners after losing to the Ravens. We all thought they would get destroyed in that game.
So he gets them ready to play.
Yeah.
This team competes. Like, they don't quit on their coach, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we'll leave that. What's your pie there, Mike? You have a pie for us?
Yeah,
Pause.
it does sound funny when you word it like that.
Yeah.
I think P.J. Walker. You actually convinced me on the defense bowl. You know what? I'm just switch. But before I listened to your answer, I would have given the biggest slice of pie to P.J. Walker. But I do think the defense now probably deserves the most blame. I would go defense 40% Walker, 35 Stefanski, 25.
Fair enough. All right,
So,
now, speaking
I
of
got to read. Before we do that, though, boy,
Yeah.
I got to read. We got
Sorry,
2
go
more
ahead.
to get in today. And the last time we have to hear from FanDuel. But we're going to give them some love because we love FanDuel. They're the #1 sportsbook in all of America. It is unquestioned, undisputed, and undeniable. If you want to get in on the action, there's no better time to do that than literally right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets by winning any $5 money line. That's a $5 money line bet that gets you $150 in bonus bets. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on America's #1 sportsbook. The app is so easy to use with player props, spreads, over-unders, and much, much more. If you can think about betting on it, you can find the prop for it on FanDuel.com. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL and an official partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Bull, it's all you.
we started talking about the Niners. By the way, the Niners have now dropped 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this division a little bit, guys. We'll bring up the division standings again if you can, Mike. By far the best division in football. All 4 teams over 500 this late in the season.
That's
is
remarkable.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
All right, and the way the Bengals started, you wouldn't have thought that, but obviously they've righted the ship. So Baltimore 6-2, they won against Arizona. Pittsburgh lost to Jacksonville. Kenny Pickett, who's been terrible this year, I did not. Listen, we all get some wrong, some right, and maybe still Kenny Pickett's going to be good. He's shown no signs of being good this year, and he got hurt, and Trubisky was even worse when he came in.
Tomlin spoke today, by the way. He
Yeah.
said he needs to see something definitive in practice this week to allow allow Pickett to play. They play Thursday Night Football.
Who are they playing?
No idea, but they play on Thursday Night Football. I'll look
Something
that up for you in one
definitive.
sec.
Does he mean health-wise or
Yeah,
production-wise?
like health-wise, like definitive. I'm reading the quote off Twitter, so I'm
Yeah.
literally just going off a quote on Twitter.
Yeah.
But he needs to see something definitive to make him feel that Kenny Pickett is not going to.
I don't think it matters. I don't think either quarterback's any good.
They play Tennessee, by the way, on Thursday Night Football.
By the way, Will Levis looked phenomenal. Did you see any of that by any
I
chance?
saw a couple of his highlight throws.
He looked really good. That is wild. When he's a rookie comes in and he just throws 4 touchdowns in his NFL debut.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. But as far as the division, I don't know how much you guys saw of the other games in this division. Obviously, I watched the Bengals game. I watched some of it at the same time as the Browns game on the split screen. But I was mostly focused on the Browns, so I kind of went back and rewatched both games. But the Bengals played their best game of the year. The game wasn't even as close as the score.
Did they play each other yet? Cincy and Baltimore? Did they play?
Yes, Baltimore won.
Baltimore won?
Baltimore won.
Where was that?
I can't remember now.
It doesn't matter. I
can't remember.
I was just curious.
But Joe Burrow, coming off a bye, looked completely healthy again. He made one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen If we could get, I don't know, did anybody see this highlight of when he broke out of a sack?
The crossover to get out the sack? Yeah.
Was that the wildest play? Did you guys see this by any chance?
I'll text. We can't show it, but I'll text.
Two guys had him. And before this week, he would have been sacked because of the calf. He somehow got out of the sack, spun around, rolled out to the right, and hit, I believe, Chase for a first down on a 3rd and 10 play. It was pretty wild. But Jason, look, that was part of what G. Bush called me about last night.
Yeah.
Was his worry about how the Bengals looked yesterday. They are back on track right now.
Well, I can't remember. A few weeks ago, we saw the odds. Somebody had the odds of winning the division, and the Bengals were at like 20%. And I just thought that was ludicrous, insanely low for a team that's accomplished all that they have. So, yeah, I mean, the Browns have their work cut out for them to compete in this division. And that's why that game at Baltimore is huge, and then Pittsburgh coming here the week after is huge.
Yeah.
Those are two massive games that are going to go a lot farther than what happened yesterday. Those two games are going to determine the fate of this season and this playoff run far more than anything that happened Sunday. That's an NFC team. These are divisional games. They matter. It almost counts for 2, it feels like.
The one advantage is the Bengals have a much tougher schedule than the Browns.
Yeah.
They got like the 2nd toughest schedule for the rest of the year.
They do.
And throughout the entire
And the
NFL.
Ravens are legit. Like, they're for real.
They're for real.
I still don't think they can do anything in the playoffs, but they got to prove it. But
coming up next for Cincinnati Bowl, they play Buffalo on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Then they play at home against Houston, who's scrappy. Not necessarily good, but scrappy.
Yeah.
Then they hit the road and play Baltimore in Baltimore. That first game was in Cincinnati.
Right, okay.
Then they're home against the Steelers, and then
That's
on the road.
That's a Thursday night game, by the way, that Bengals-Ravens.
Oh, wow.
It is. And then they're home against Pittsburgh, and then on the road, Sunday Night Football against Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. You
know
what,
they have the Chiefs in Week 17.
This is how I have felt. I've always felt when the Bengals were good. And this is the best Bengals run ever, obviously in franchise history. They had some good teams in the early 80s with Ken Anderson and some good teams in the late 80s with Boomer and into the early 90s. And then they had some good teams with Andy Dalton and even with Carson Palmer. But this is the best Bengals ever, this version of them in 3 years. When you're good and you believe in your quarterback, I don't care who you play. They're playing the Bills this week. I don't care because Joe Burrow looks like Joe Burrow again. He's the guy, and he I think he was 28 of 32 yesterday. He didn't miss a single throw the whole game. So and that's where you hope the Browns can get to is when you believe in the team, it's who cares who you play? It doesn't matter. The Steelers did not look good, in that game. The
Steelers
terrible.
just don't beat themselves. You have to beat the Steelers
right.
because
You have
Pittsburgh
to put them away.
Pittsburgh does not beat itself.
No.
We have years of evidence of that, and it's happened again this year with
Although
the Browns.
Mitch Trubisky did throw 2 picks.
Yeah, but this is still you have to go out there and win the game. They're not going to hand it to you.
Right. They're never. Yeah.
And that to me is the worst team in the division, and yet they're
yes,
still 4-2.
definitely.
They're still
because the Browns and the Ravens both handed the Steelers games.
Yeah. That's why I say you have to beat them because they're not going to beat themselves.
Right. I think the Ravens is actually the class of this division. I think, all the talk during the offseason about Lamar Jackson wanting his money, so far, now granted, he got to do it in the playoffs. So far, he's proved to be worth the money that he's gotten. That hardball coach team, man, they're tough, they're disciplined, and to Bull's point, when you believe in your quarterback and believe in your team, you really don't care about who your next opponent is.
Yeah.
I thought they had a statement victory last week against the Detroit Lions,
that was impressive.
That was a statement.
That was really impressive.
You know what I mean? And then they came in. You played at Arizona Cardinals, and even though Arizona hung around, it wasn't a letdown game.
Right.
They went in there and they took care of business. You look at Pittsburgh. I'm with you. They don't beat themselves. I crack myself up wondering how is it that every week Mike Tomlin is able to get the most out this football team when they don't even have this much talent.
Yeah.
They go out here, compete, and somehow, some way, come away victorious. To the Bengals, that game was not as close as the score indicated. It was a 14-0 real quick, and it seemed like every time San Francisco did something to try to get back in the game, the Bengals offense will respond with a quick touchdown. I think Purdy threw back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back drives.
Yeah.
The last one, the very next play, I think they even had Jamar Chase double covered, and it was like Burrow hit him so perfect in stride that it was almost like he was walking by himself. But you got a tough division here. You got every team with at least one divisional win except for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm pretty sure that'll change. But I mean,
I still think that they're going to win the division.
Yeah,
like
take the Bengals. I mean, you look at Baltimore, man. They're 4-1.
You think the Bengals are going to still win the division?
Yeah, I do.
They're 4-1 on the road, 2-1 in the division, 4-2 in the conference. So as you talk about the conference games, every team has at least 3 wins in the AFC conference, except for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And every
don't have
team
any wins against
has
the
at least, you know,
and I still
one
think they're
division
going to win
win.
the division.
But they got the toughest road.
Bizarre stat on the Bengals here. First team in the history of the NFL since the merger, which was what, 70, 69?
70, I think.
First team in the history of the NFL since the merger to get their first 4 wins against the non-conference team.
Wow.
Just an oddball stat.
Yeah.
They beat the whole NFC West.
Yeah.
If you had to predict the division order of finish today, you just said you got the Bengals. I mean, they're way behind. They're 2. Let's see. They're 4-3.
Well, if they beat Baltimore
in the next matchup,
but
but they got to play Buffalo, Kansas City, Jacksonville.
Maybe I was getting ahead of myself a little bit there. I don't know what Baltimore has left.
Let's see.
Up next for Baltimore.
Yeah. And the up next you gave for Cincinnati didn't even include Kansas City, who they play late in the year.
And the Browns again.
Yeah.
So Baltimore has Seattle at home this week, then Cleveland at home next week, then Cincinnati at home on Thursday Night Football.
They got 3 straight home games?
3 straight home games.
Wow.
Seattle, Cleveland, Cincinnati.
All tough games.
Then they go on the road to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. Then they welcome the Rams. Then they hit the road. This is a tough way to end the season. At Jacksonville, at San Francisco, home versus Miami, home versus Pittsburgh.
I mean, they don't have any. Listen, the AFC North is tough. It's going to be a slog. But if you had, come on, I'm going to make everybody do it. You had to bet right now. Predict the order of finish in the AFC North. What is it? Mike, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Cincinnati scares the absolute living dog crap out of me. When Joe Burrow's cooking, and we talk about back to the very beginning of the show, today's show, if your quarterback goes down, you're kind of screwed. And when you have a guy who's in that top tier level that we all hope Deshaun Watson can get back to, everything else is easier. I trust Joe Burrow more than I trust Lamar Jackson. And with 1 game difference, or really it's 1.5, they're 6-2, Cincinnati's 4-3.
But it's more than 1.5 because right now the Ravens have the tiebreaker.
Granted, I still like Cincinnati's chances. If I had to predict today, I would go Cincinnati 1, Baltimore 2, Cleveland 3, and Pittsburgh 4.
I think I'm right with them. Same exact order. Cincinnati, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh.
Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh.
I'm going to go Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, too. So we all had the Browns finishing third.
Now, with that being said, though, let me make something very clear.
Yeah.
The Browns could still win 10 games and still make the playoffs and finish third in the division.
For sure.
Third in this division is not an indictment on a bad football team by any means.
No.
So I'm not
No,
counting them out
listen,
at
the
all.
Browns are behind the 8 ball. The Bengals have Joe Burrow. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. And right now the Browns have P.J. Walker.
Yeah. I mean, they need Deshaun back sooner than later, which I don't even know if that's possible. And they need him to play like the Deshaun Watson everyone expected.
Right.
Or they could be the fourth-place team.
Now, the Browns have a better defense than the Ravens and a better defense than the Bengals, but not by a lot.
Right.
Those
the Ravens
defenses are both
defense
good.
has actually surpassed the Browns defense
in terms
their
of what?
Total efficiency rating. Jake Trotter tweeted this out a second ago. I forget the exact metric, but the Browns no longer have the number 1 overall ranked defense in football. In ESPN's efficiency rankings, the Browns have dropped to number 2. The Ravens have surpassed them as number 1. They also lead the league in opponent points per game. I'd still take the Browns defense, but just don't.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. And those, interestingly, Gus Edwards the last 2 weeks has played very well for Baltimore. Also, they played a nothing team obviously in Arizona, but they didn't fall down to the competition. Their 2 losses are against. What's funny about the Ravens is their 2 losses are against the Steelers and the Colts, who were middle of the road teams at best.
Well, Colts almost beat the Browns too.
Do they have any? The Ravens wins. They beat the Bengals. They beat the Browns.
So they started the season. We'll go through their schedule.
The Lions was a good win.
They beat the Texans by 16. That was C.J. Stroud's first game.
Right.
D'Amico Ryan's first game. Then they beat the Bengals. That game was close, but not as close as the final score
may
have indicated. Then they lost to Indianapolis in Week 3.
Right.
They beat the Browns 28-3 in Week 4. Then they lost to Pittsburgh the following week. And in the last 3, they beat Tennessee in a weird, ugly London game.
Yeah.
24-16. Justin Tucker had 6 field goals in that game. Then they beat the absolute living dog poop out of Detroit. And then they beat Arizona by 7.
That game was so weird.
That
Because
game's the anomaly.
I feel like going into the Lions game, I was not really buying the Ravens. Because even though they had a good record, I wasn't
the Lions are
overly
suddenly
impressed.
the bar. The Lions are the litmus test now.
Well,
for
because
teams?
the Lions had been playing great.
I know.
In particular, the Lions' offense had been fantastic going into that game.
Yeah.
And their offense just did nothing.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of eye-opening about the Ravens' defense that game. But I think what we keep getting reminded of every week is that more than ever, maybe, this is a week-to-week league.
Absolutely.
Look how bad the Chiefs were. They got smoked by the Broncos.
Yeah.
Smoked.
Miami smoked Denver. Like 70, right? 70. And then Denver comes back and beats Kansas City.
It's just crazy. It's really hard to predict things week by week.
That's what makes the NFL fun, though. That's what makes the NFL what they are. They've always been a league that's been driven by parity. The term any given Sunday is not cliche. I wake up every Sunday to watch football knowing, like, regardless of records or who has to start players or not, any team can
something goofy's going to happen.
Any team can get got on any given Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the NFL fun. That's what makes the NFL fun to watch.
I think it's more than ever now, though. I think the parity is there. Like, I don't know. Philly's the best team probably in football right now. You know, they're 7-1. I don't think they're unbeatable at all.
No.
Jalen Hurts hasn't played Their 2 wins over Washington, they had to pull them out.
Yeah. Good luck getting a Super Bowl pick right now. Like, if you had to pick a Super Bowl, 2 teams and a winner, good luck with that.
It's tough. I mean, yeah. And Miami, Miami did beat New England, but even their offense hasn't been quite as dynamic since that Bronco game. It's kind of come back to earth a little bit too. We're still playing very well overall. Go ahead.
We're going to get to the last couple Super Chats here in 1 sec. Before we do that, I have a question, and this kind of comes from a lot of what I've seen in the chat today. Earl's out there, so we've had to take a little closer look at that from back here between myself and Anthony. I think I know how you're all going to answer, but I figure I've asked the question anyway. And Earl brought this up on the postgame show a tiny bit. Would you consider letting AVP call plays, or are you still comfortable with Kevin Stefanski being the play caller?
That ship sailed a long time ago.
That's ridiculous. Why would we change anything?
Just bringing up questions from the chat.
They have, again, their offense has been competitive for the most part outside of the Ravens game with the worst quarterback play in the league and their best running back out for the year.
And the right tackle.
And a right tackle. And only one really good wide receiver.
Yeah.
Earl, I know you mentioned this yesterday, so you want to chime in?
Yeah, a couple people in the chat did bring it up. I mean, I suggested that I don't think Kevin Stefanski is a good situational play caller, right?
Based on what?
Based off his history here at the Cleveland Browns. Like, if I can go through my mind, just muscle memory. You asked me a question. Let me finish. Let me finish. I don't think he's a good situational play caller. I think over his tenure as the Cleveland Browns head coach, you can point to games, whether it be at the 2-minute warning, whether it be mid-first quarter, the usage of timeouts. There's certain things, in my opinion, about his situational play calling that's not all that great. And I feel like that you have some solid offensive minds on your coaching staff, like a Callahan, like a Van Pelt. And, one of the suggestions I made was, hell, if this is the case, hand over play calling to Van Pelt. Now, that was in a moment because I was saying, you keep trying the same thing over and over, and maybe a different play caller will put a different set of eyes on it, and that could be the case. But I do wonder how much, he talks to Callahan and AVP about certain packages during certain points of the game and see if they can collectively come up with something together, or is this strictly just all Kevin Stefanski with all to say doing his thing?
My counter to that would be, I don't know if there's any way to find this out. This would have to be deep research. Like, this idea, and I've heard people say this before, he's bad at situational play calling. I don't know that nobody's ever given me a fact to back that up. It's just like, I remember this game and this situation. Well, when it goes badly, we're going to remember it.
Well, it's to Jason's point earlier. They threw on 3rd and 3, 3 plays before the 3rd and 3 pass that got picked off, and no one remembers it. But continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just don't I think it's easy to throw that out there and say he's a bad situational play caller. I don't think there's any facts that back that up. There may be, but
He's had play calls in the past where I was like, oh, God, I hate that. Every coach does. Every
course.
coach has play calls that they want back at whatever moments. And when plays don't work, they look awful. When they do work, you look like a genius. So I have no problem with him calling the plays. I think it is very collaborative, actually, with AVP in terms of how they get to. Now, in the moment, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of putting the game plan together, building it out, I think Alex is very involved in that. But it's Kevin making the calls because you got 30 seconds and you're on to the next call.
Most coaches call their own plays. If they're a defensive coach, they're calling the defense. If they're an offensive coach, they're calling offense. Most coaches do that. Okay, and that's just the way it is in the NFL. Now, would the Browns be better if they had Alex Van calling plays? We'll never know. My guess is they wouldn't be. I don't think Stefanski's a bad play caller, bad situational play caller. I think he's a solid play caller, a good play caller. I think he does great. I thought calling that timeout before the 2-minute warning was actually a brilliant call that a lot of coaches would not have thought to do. Because as Daryl Johnson said, it gave them the ability to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it gave them time to, they could have just run the play also and still had the ability to do whatever they want. However, it would have felt like they had time to set up, to call timeout, take the breather, and call what they thought was the right play. Now, it didn't turn out to be the right play. It didn't work. It might have been the right play. It didn't work. But I don't think a lot of coaches would have had that wherewithal to call a timeout in that situation. And I actually thought it was a really smart play because you're going to get to the 2-minute warning after it anyway, so it doesn't matter if you call a timeout or not.
And the 4 plays at the goal line last week, everyone was losing their minds out. It was very well thought out. You rather have 4 cracks at it than 2. There's logic behind a lot of the things that he does and that he comes up with. You're not going to like every call. Nobody does.
Well, when you alluded to last week, when we were saying he should have ran the ball,
Yeah.
They didn't have any timeouts, and you brought up a point that actually made me think, how about the goal line package? If they didn't get in, you can't even substitute out their package.
What you have on the field is what you have.
That's what it is. So, but, it is what it is. I get it. People mad we lost, man.
Yeah.
And
that's fine.
We lost.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's always aggravating when you lose the game, but you don't have to fire the coach after every game. It's silly.
And Steve Becker, enough with his Eagles propaganda. Do we need his Eagle propaganda in every text? Nick Sirianni with his what is with his eyes, by the way? What is happening there? He looks like he's half asleep every time he goes online. He's a good coach. By the way, every coach is a good coach when the team's winning. And then the second they start losing, the last coach, what's the coach that was there? Now he's in Jacksonville?
Doug Peterson,
right? He was a genius. Then he was an idiot. Now he's a genius again.
That's the way it goes. The Browns have been in position to win every game except the Baltimore game. They've had a chance to win. They've been in position.
Yes.
They've been in the game at the end of the game to win every game but the Baltimore.
All is not lost, man. 4-3. You might have lost a game that you should have won, but you 4-3, tied for second in your division. It could be a whole lot worse than
The
Cleveland.
Browns have had 4 games this year that could have easily gone
either way,
and they're 2-2.
That's why I said you could easily make a case for 5-2.
Yeah.
You could just as easily make a case for 2-5.
Well, they could have actually been 6-1 even.
I'm sorry.
Right?
That's what I meant. 6-1.
Right.
You could easily be 6-1. The strip sack in Pittsburgh, the interception off the helmet, you're 6-1.
Yep.
But you could just as easily be 2-5.
Yeah.
So 4-3 is probably about
with as bad as they've played in the passing game.
They probably should be 2-5, or they should be 6-1.
Go ahead, Mike.
We got some super chats here to finish up the show, and whenever we bring you guys super chats, it's brought to us by our dear friends at PCC Airfoils. If looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits, well, PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Menor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. You can apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more. We read a couple of these earlier. We're going to finish off the last few now. The first one comes from Peter R. Thank you for the level-headed show and not screaming for Kevin to be fired. He's the only reason we can do anything on offense with all the injuries we've sustained. M. Vine says, it's all on Haslam. Is he not watching the games? Charles T. said, greatest defense in the world, ? JSN touchdown was horrible. Noah Fant, horrible non-tackling. Couldn't stop the struggling Geno on the last drive. Fans saying it's all on Stefanski and his fault. Let's make, let me read this again. Fans saying it's all Stefanski's fault and make Schwartz head coach. It's crazy. Okay, I see what he was trying to say there.
Yeah, that is crazy.
He's saying it's crazy that Stefanski should be fired and promote Jim Schwartz.
Yes,
That's what he was
agreed.
saying. Edwin Young says Stefanski will not survive his coaching malfeasance. The team is willing themselves with competitiveness with no head coach upside. His lack of situational awareness is disappointing. Love the show, guys. We appreciate that. Edwin Darrell says, problem is Stefanski's been making those same boneheaded decisions for 3 years, not running the ball 3 consecutive times last week at the goal line.
We just explained that.
Last week, goal to goal, he passed the ball after timeout. How was this his best 3rd down and 3 play drawn up?
Well, since he's got here, they convert 57% of third and threes through the air,
which is well above league average. With generally bad
quarterback play.
Yeah.
And last one comes from Vernell Jackson. Being a 500 coach shows he's a bad play caller. And those are super chats for today.
No, it doesn't.
Not nearly as volatile as last night's super chats on the postgame show, which were all calling for Kevin Stefanski's head on a platter.
This idea that we fire the coach, I'm sure that's going on in other places.
I'm
too.
sure it is.
Yeah. Teams that are a lot worse than the Browns. Yeah. But I don't know.
I said this pre-show.
Yeah.
So you guys know I'm from New Jersey. My dad's a diehard Giants fan.
Yeah.
He didn't even watch the second half and overtime of the game.
Oh,
because
my God.
when Tyrod Taylor went out, who's already their backup, they put in Tommy DeVito as a 3rd-string quarterback. And they
New Jersey's own.
Had so little faith in Tommy DeVito, they didn't even attempt to pass.
I've never heard of Tommy DeVito.
I think he threw a couple of passes.
Well, but they barely threw the ball.
Yeah, they didn't throw the ball at all.
Literally barely threw the football.
But did you see that? You talk about officials, but I think he was officially 1 for 3 for -2 yards as quarterback.
Yes.
And he played like half the game.
Is that Danny's son?
My point is, Danny DeVito went to the same high school as my dad, by the way. But
nice.
My point is, what they have done with P.J. Walker
is miraculous.
The offense, they moved the ball. Tommy DeVito's final stat line yesterday, 2 for 7 for -1 yards.
2 for 7.
He had a 2.9 QB rating, QBR, a 2.9.
Well,
that is what most 3rd-string quarterbacks in the NFL do when they're thrust into action.
How many carries did Saquon Barkley have in that game?
36.
Why didn't they?
They ran the ball 52 times. They threw it 14.
The Giants were up 10-7 with like 2 minutes to go in the game, I think, and they had a 4th and 1 in Jets at like the Jets 25, and they tried a field goal to go up by 6, and they missed it. I don't know why they didn't just try to get the first down and end the game. The way Barkley was running, the Jets wouldn't have stopped them.
I mean, he averaged 3.3 yards a carry. I don't know what it was. I didn't watch the game. Real quick, the receiving stats in that game.
They didn't need 3.3. They needed 1.
Oh, they needed 1? I had no idea. I didn't watch the game at all. Real quick, the Giants' receiving stats. Their leading receiver was Darren Waller, 1 catch for 4 yards. Their second leading receiver was Matt Breida, 1 catch for 3 yards. Saquon Barkley, 3 catches for 0 yards. And Darius Slayton, 1 catch for -1 yards.
Wow.
I'm serious. I just showed Anthony hop on the mic. I'm not kidding, right?
Mike is reading that correctly. He's not drunk.
That was like the Patriots game a few years ago in the crazy wind when he threw 3 passes.
Yep. Except it was good weather in New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was not terrible weather.
It was acceptable weather. But I don't know if anybody saw this video. So the Jets they hadn't done anything. They scored a touchdown early. The Giants miss a field goal, so it stays 10-7. Jets get the ball back. They go down the field. They get into field goal range, but they have no timeout, so they got to hurry up to the line and snap it and spike it so they can get a field goal. Well, they did it with 1 second left. However, it should have never happened.
Because the center snapped it himself.
The center just put the ball down and snapped it.
Oh, wow. That was the thing a couple years ago with the Cowboys.
official kind of ran in, and maybe he touched the ball, but the official was supposed to set the ball.
That happened with the Cowboys. They lost the game. Playoff game, wasn't it?
The Jets should have lost.
Wow.
Instead, I got a push on my my Bet Rivers picks yesterday. Finished 2-2-1. Anyway, Mike,
Yeah, just want to tease what we got coming up the rest of the week here because we got a busy week here. We got Mike Florio making his UCSS debut
that could
tomorrow.
get feisty, maybe.
I would imagine that's going to be a little contentious. I could imagine that getting a little contentious.
Yeah.
We also will be all over the trade deadline. We're busting out the Kool-Aid meter tomorrow to talk about some potential trade targets. Whether or not the Browns make a move and or don't make a move, what does that say about Andrew Berry in this front office and how they view the rest of this team? And also later in the week, we're doing a TV show where Bull's hosting. His first ever hosting gig on a linear top 20 market TV show, Bull. So I hope you're not losing sleep over this.
Not at all.
Are you nervous?
No.
Boy, don't get nervous. Right?
I don't get nervous. I mean, I have in my career, but not for a very long time.
Hey, real quick, because I've been reading the chat. People thought I had on Steelers gear. or Steelers jersey.
That
This
is
is
a
a
Steelers
navy
sweatshirt.
blue and gold. This is a
there's
Warrensville.
orange
It's
on
a
the bottom.
Michigan sweatshirt. Get it straight.
It's a
It says
Warrensville High
Harris
School.
on the back. That's
Warrensville
not
High.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the Lady Tigers, man, who about to get their season started. I know my daughter is looking forward to it. She said, "Dad,
Yeah.
I done took a big leap from year 1 to year 2. I don't want to have to come out here and have to analyze your game, Yana."
That's right.
But no, shout out to them, man.
Good luck to them this year. Good luck to Rocky River football. They won their first playoff game this weekend. And shout out to my son and all the kids that performed in their play this weekend. They did a great job. My son was awesome. All his friends came to watch him. It was a wonderful weekend. I'm very proud of Yair. You did a great job as Snake the Burglar. He was tremendous in the show this weekend. And now it's off to the next show. And we'll see you on Overtime. What are we doing on Overtime, Mike?
High school football playoff tickets have gotten outrageously expensive
Oh,
for no
yeah. This
reason.
is an issue. We'll get to that next. See ya.